The Dexter City Council meeting of Monday, April 24th, 2023. I'd like to call the meeting to order. And students from Wiley, if you would help us in leading us in the pledge of allegiance, we're all going to stand and appreciate it. If you would start us off. Thank you very much. Bonnie, I didn't mean to take away your lead role, but it's not.
Okay.
Roll call, please.
Albeck?
Yeah.
Griffin?
Here.
Hubbard? Here. Michelle's?
Present.
Black?
Here.
Sunny Pharaoh?
Here.
Keel?
Here.
Enoch? Here. And the recorder is absent.
Yes, and you did notify us. Item C is approval of our meeting minutes. We have a work session on April 10th, the regular meeting on April 10th, and the special city council meeting to do village manager, city manager review on April 12th.
I'll move to approve that.
Moved by Griffin, thank you, Dave.
Second.
Farrell, there you go. Amy, any comments on the minutes?
On page 10, under my council comment,
Page 10, okay. Yep.
on the fourth line. I would like it to say, instead of RY norms are important, to read RY adhering to norms is now important.
Further comments from council? John? Anyone else? Zach?
On page 8 of 142,
Page 8 of 142,
if I
okay.
recall my motion correctly, it was a firefighter of their choosing, which is intended that firefighters get to choose who they were represented by. Doesn't seem like it's a large group that wants to come. And then on page 11 of 142, we're only able to enter a closed section for personnel review if it's requested specifically by the personnel being evaluated.
Very cool, and it was.
Then that needs to be documented.
Good plan.
Yeah, that's been my appointments.
Say that again, Mark?
Accordance in.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry.
Thank you for correcting that as well. Any other council comments, minutes? Okay, please call the vote to do the minutes.
Albeck?
Yes.
Hubbard?
Yes.
Michelle's?
Yes.
Black?
Yeah.
Griffin?
Yes.
Sunny Pharaoh?
Yes.
Keel?
Yes. Motion carries. Thank you. We have two prearranged participation items this evening, and I have a feeling both of them may go a little longer than 10 minutes. So I'd like to start with the Wiley Elementary students and Kylie Benson.
Yeah.
Here, I'll let you introduce the topic.
Hi, everyone. I'm Kylie Benson. I'm a fourth grade teacher at Wiley, and I'm here with some of my students, along with some of the students from the New Voices third grade class and Deb Evers fourth grade class. And our students have been working really, really hard researching Arbor Day and different native trees in Michigan. And we're so proud of them and really excited for you to hear all the work they've been doing. So to start us off, we have Eve and Charlotte.
Hi, I'm Dee, and I'm Charlotte. What is Arbor Day and why do we celebrate it? We celebrate the holiday Arbor Day because we celebrate everything that the trees do for us. Also, we will be giving out free trees. Now, we will be telling you about the research we did. We did a lot of research on these projects. We watched a video about Arbor Day, and we wrote what we learned, and we researched paper birch, white pine, red pine, black gum, and tamarack trees. We are so glad to be a part of this. We are so excited to share our information with you. What you need to know before planting trees. By Eleanor and Millie. Hello, City Council. I'm Eleanor. And I'm Millie. Today we'll be showing you what we learned about what we need to know before planting trees. We learned about creeper birch, black gum, American larch, white pine, and the red pine, but we aren't giving away any red pine. First, we learned about how deep your hole should be. We also learned about how the trees people plant should not be close to anything. Another thing we learned is about the type of soil you should use for each tree so it grows better. We also learned about the best season to plant new trees. We learned about what the age of the tree should be. The average age of the tree depends on if you treat it right. Next, we learned that trees help the environment by providing protection for animals and give us oxygen. We learned stuff that you shouldn't do too. We learned you shouldn't pick its needles and leaves or needles. The leaves and needles are very important to the tree. Something else we learned is not planting the tree right next to another tree. We also learned that you should not spray them with pesticides. Thank you for listening to our work. We hope you learned a thing or two before planting your trees. Hello, City Council. I'm here to talk about our groups. At first, our groups were split into 3 classrooms: Eber, Benson, and Weiss. Eber was doing white pine, Benson was doing tamarack, and Weiss was doing creeper birch. I know we are just kids, but you can trust our research. We've done so much work and I can see all of our progress. People that have done the research are so hardworking and determined to show all of the adults what we have been working on. The groups we have were divided so everyone is doing work and everyone has a job. We also came up with expectations to make sure they're correct and interesting facts. Now, to conclude my presentation, our research is very hard, so we hope everyone learns from it. Thank you and goodbye.
Canva and presentation was 500. Today we are here to talk about the next step of this Canva boards and poster boards and Canva flyers. First, we made a small sketch of what our poster board looks like. Then we either wrote it by hand or did a Google Doc. If you did a Google Doc, you would get it printed, and if you wanted to write it by hand, you started with poster board. Then we glued the pictures and info onto the poster board.
So the other group of people used a website called Canva for one of the creations we did. Does the Canva people read Canva about their tree? Then they printed it out, which we had trouble printing in color, but then we finally got them. Then we did the next step, which we will tell you about.
Hi, I'm Genevieve Ellis, and I'm very happy to be here. I'm here to teach about how we have to research new trees. At first, we thought we were only doing tamarack, purple birch, and red pine. But then red pine became white pine because Miss Anil couldn't buy red pine, so Miss Evers' group researched white pine. Miss Benson's group researched black gum, and my group, Mrs. Weiss's group, was getting ready to come to the city council meetings for the word to the community. Now I am finished. Thank you for listening to my presentation. Hi, I'm Avery and I'm Kyla, and we are third graders at Wiley Elementary. On Wednesday, April 5th, 2023, Ms. Anil came to Wiley Elementary to talk about how we can spread the word out to the people in Dexter that are coming to Arbor Day. So we went to Mrs. Evers' classroom to talk about that. First, we got surprised and figured out that we have to research more/new trees. Then we thought about other places we could distribute trees to the people in Dexter. So we broke up into small groups and got maps of the city of Dexter. Then we thought about other things we could use to spread the word out. Our top idea was Google Docs. We thought about other ideas, but we decided not to use them. While we were sharing the idea of Google Docs to Mrs. Weiss, the other people in our group thought of making announcements. Then the next day, we started typing all of this out for you. And every day we did this, we typed and typed and typed. Now we need to tell you one last thing. Thank you so much for letting us come to City Council today. We are very grateful we got to do this because not many people get to. So thank you very much. Have a great rest of your night.
Our last friends here from law support.
No. So, thank you. What was the website that you said you used?
Canva,
How do you spell that?
CANVA.
CANVA. Okay, thank you. Thank you. I'll look at that. So these are the boards you did.
Yeah.
Did everybody get an A?
It's plus.
Now that's on the right.
We are gonna be joining the community, give out trees in different parts of the province, so we're really excited. All of our classes will be going to the different tree handing out places, and we wanted to make sure that people know what kind of tree they're getting when they plant, so that they can make a wise decision for their home. And so these guys are gonna be there and help community members decide which tree would be best for their yard.
And what are those places?
We have the Dexter. The Dexter Library, bushes, where else? The gazebo.
Great. Well, thanks for all your good work.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. I always say this, you're welcome to stay for the rest of the.
Yeah. Like that, Jesus. I know we've got some, we're gonna collect these super fast, these are gonna be, where we get on this. Thank you guys very much. I'll bring them.
Okay, next up is David Lutton regarding the Stone Quincy problem. Welcome.
Thank you.
Come back to follow.
You got that right. Boy, that was great. Hello. Start. Try not to deal with you. Thank you for this opportunity. I want to brief you on some future plans regarding what's commonly known as the Sloan Kingsley project. By way of introduction, I'm David Lutton, I've been before council before, but many of you are new since I was here. I'm a 42-year resident of the school district, 42-year resident of Scioto Township. Both my sons K-12 through Dexter. My wife taught 20 years in the Dexter system as an art teacher. I was a member of the committee that launched the Dexter Community Fund. And professionally, I was with the Reinhardt real estate firm locally for 45 years, the last 20 of which I was the owner of the company. I have been part of the Sloan Kingsley project for about 5 years. I've been the controlling owner for the last 3. And we've had a number of discussions with staff and council. And Scioto Township's board, this land is in Scioto Township. Most of those discussions related to fairly high density, and in one case, quite high density residential development. Today here, and there were reasons for that. As the broker at Reinhardt, I am keenly aware of what's happened to affordability in our county. And in the Dexter community in particular as a nearby resident. I was trying to develop some workforce housing and some additional, let's say, below median price housing, specifically aimed at first-time buyers and senior citizens on fixed incomes. Also trying to get more one-level living into the housing stock. For a variety of reasons, those high-density plans are not going forward. I'm here to present sort of a global plan for the 237 acres that make up Sloan Kingsley. The new plan involves a much lower residential density and more land conservation, although there has always been a land conservation component, as well as continued agricultural use. There are three distinct parts to the plan, and on page 3 and 4 of the pink handout is the one pager and then a map showing you what this will look like. I appeared on the 13th of April in front of the Land Preservation Commission in Scioto Township. I'm here with you tonight, and tomorrow I will read the Scioto board on this plan. And as you may have read in your pink packet today, I delivered to Michelle Annual a formal letter requesting an annexation by Dexter of 45 of the 237 acres that make up Sloan Kingsley. Said we have three distinct parts. I think what this project will do is create certainty after roughly 20 years of different proposals about this property. Because we can create certainty for both municipalities. My goal over the course of this year is to move each of the three component parts forward. One of those is the annexation that we are requesting Dexter to make. The easiest, I think, of the three parcels described on the map you have in your packet is the conservation packet. That would be the green colored portion of the map. The majority of that is in mature woods, speaking on the east side of Baker, the mature woods and wetlands parcel, usually 75 or 80 acres of woods. There is a part of it that would be under agriculture that is being recommended for pathway, which could link into the Dexter system, could link into the nature preserve on the west side of Baker Road. So conservation on 111 acres. 87 acres of the property would be utilized by a nonprofit to establish a campus and a residential living center for mentally disabled adults. Think autism and some other conditions. Adults who need permanent all-day supervision and care. What's proposed is approximately 100 residents, 32 of which would be people afflicted with the developmentally disabled conditions. The director of the group is here tonight. Her name is Carrie Papakian, and we have a purpose agreement in place with her organization for this 87 acres. She will be speaking first Saturday in May at the Dexter Forum. I know that she would be willing to come back and talk further about what it is they're trying to build on the Sloan Kingsley parcel. This would also be on the east side of Baker Road. The third component of 237 is 45 acres of residential development. This is immediately to the south of Dexter Crossing subdivision. We're looking to do 70 to 75 single family home sites, and I would assume that the housing would be similar to what already exists in Dexter Crossing. This is not as affordable as some of the housing that I wanted to build in the high density plans, but there is a need for solid middle class housing, and that's the way that I would describe the Dexter Crossing. I will not be building the homes. On approval, completion of the annexation, I will be selling the property to a qualified home builder to build out the 70 or 75 lots. I think we've tried hard to come up with something that will work for the community. I'm trying to see where I am on time. 2 more minutes. 2 more minutes, thank you. There's a list in your packet of perceived benefits that we have identified. I think the formalization and the conservation of the land is important. Interest has been expressed for more than a decade in conserving what's there. I want to speak for just a second about the west side of Baker Road, approximately 21 acres that's there. There is a SIO preserve on both ends of that parcel, north and south. This parcel was not purchased by SIO 10 years or so ago because there is arsenic contamination in it. Our intention would be to mitigate the arsenic and then sell it. SIO is interested in it, but not without mitigation of the arsenic problem. So that's a challenge that we recognize that we have. Again, we think this property and conserved part can be tied into a number of different potential trail systems. One of the things that the nonprofit Many Hands is their brand name intends to do is to keep more than half the land in agricultural use, and has even said that they would consider talking with SIO about a conservation easement on the agricultural portion of their land. That's not in writing or a done deal, but there's an open attitude about that, and I think interest exists on the side of the township side. I was trying when I was proposing high density development to meet a social need, more housing and more affordable housing. Instead, I'm now pitching Many Hands and the social need that they will meet. I have been almost amazed since going under contract with them and talking to different community people about how many families have a situation where this kind of care is going to be required. And what happens when the parents of these now adult children pass on? Okay. This would be a solution for an awful lot of people in Washington County. And lastly, for Dexter, the obvious benefits of adding 70 or 75 homes to your housing stock. I'm told, belief from the mayor is that there is capacity in your sewer system. We would want to be hooking up to Dexter City and water, and obviously the roads end at our property line coming out of Dexter Crossing. There are road stubs at the end there. I assume your planners figured there would be more housing at the end of those roads, so we would just be continuing with those roads. So increased tax base, increased population, more school children. I have spoken with Superintendent Timmis, who told me the school system is down more than 200 students this year. And part of that is COVID related, but the So getting more students into the district, which this development would do, I think would be a good. I will stop talking. You have my one pager, you have the map. I'm happy to answer any question. You have.
Does anybody in council have a question for Mr. Lutton at this time? Or do we just want to be honest, Steve?
There's a one quick question, related to the site plan as currently, or whatever you would call it. Is there road connectivity between the many hand aspect and the residential aspect that crosses that land preservation?
No, the intent is that ingress egress for the residential development will come through Dexter Crossing. And access to the Many Hands property would be off of Baker Road.
Thank you.
Thank you for presenting the information tonight and keeping us up to date on what's going on. It's been very helpful.
You're welcome. Michelle, I'll be in touch.
Okay, so that concludes our pre-arranged participation portion of our agenda. We are down to non-arranged participation. This is an opportunity for anyone in the audience or online to ask a question or speak this evening. If you would like to speak this evening, please approach the podium, state your name and address for the record, and you have 5 minutes.
Great. Thanks so much, Mayor. My name is Jessica Flintoff. I have the pleasure of serving as the clerk of Scioto Township. I live on North Wagner Road, Scioto Township. I appreciate the opportunity to speak today about the Sloan Kingsley annexation proposal. I appreciate getting a copy of the letter. We just learned about it right now. I believe it's an important point of fact that it was just last week or so that 6 of the 7 Board of Trustees members learned about this annexation proposal. And I came here tonight to tell you that because the treasurer, myself, the clerk, all 4 trustees, the township manager just learned about it just over a week ago. Prior to this, the board had heard a presentation from Mr. Lutton in July of 2022. He had proposed the prior plan that he referenced, and he asked if Scioto would enter into a 425 agreement. The board responded with a preliminary mix of opposition, skepticism, and questions. Since then, the board heard nothing about this property until last week when it bubbled up through an advisory committee. Scioto Township's relationship with the city of Dexter is very important. So that's why I'm here tonight to share this information with you. And as you know, we, the Scioto board, have a duty to administer the township to the best of our ability for the benefit of our residents and our taxpayers. So in order for the township to best serve our residents, I would ask that the city council engage in a good faith discussion about this topic directly with the board of trustees. No one board member has been authorized from the township of Scioto to represent the township in these matters. Tomorrow night at our meeting, I'll encourage our board to appoint 1 or 2 members to serve as Scioto's reps so that we can begin discussing this annexation proposal with the city of Dexter. Thank you.
Thank you for coming this evening. Appreciate it very much.
Okay.
Good evening.
Hi.
How are you?
Good. So my name is Barbara Reed and I live at 7130 Ulrich Street in Dexter. How much time do I have? 5 minutes?
5 minutes, yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So I just wanted to, I was listening, this was news to me as well, and I was interested in it. And so I would say that, just a comment on that, your successful management of the city of Dexter has led to increased property values, which leads to increased taxes for the city management, which increases the services available to members of the community who live here, which increases the desirability. And then again, increases property values. So I appreciate that. I think that's your job, to improve the lives of the residents who elected you to add to our investment in the community. So anyway, as a homeowner and a property owner in Dexter, I appreciate that values have gone up since we moved here 20 years ago, but that's kind of expected, and it's, for a homeowner, that's a good thing, and you get more taxes out of this. So the other topic that I wanted to speak on is that I know when I was on the school board, sometimes people would hear things in the community and they get upset, and maybe they don't even necessarily have their facts right. And they would come in and talk to us, and so I may not have my facts correct here, but I just, based on what I heard in the community, and then I looked over the packet to get a better understanding of what was going on. I did have some thoughts, and if it's not accurate and I don't know what I'm talking about, then great, then there's nothing to worry about. What I had heard, or kind of word, is that you might be planning to discipline or otherwise sanction a couple of city council members. And that I just wanted to share with you kind of the optics or some of the, how that's perceived by people in the community. I don't know I couldn't tell from the agenda what exactly was going to happen with changing committees and things. But it seems to me that if you had two city council members who came to meetings unprepared, refused to vote, regularly interrupted or yelled at people, maybe something else, what was it? Like repeatedly make motions that are just frivolous to bog things up. Well, then it would make sense maybe to, as a city council, have some sanctions or some encouragement for better behavior in the city council room. That seems to me that there are two city council members who perhaps are engaged privately in private behavior as private citizens that the city council may not be thrilled with, may have feelings. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but let's just say have feelings about that. And so then maybe disloyalty is discussed, or failing to follow some norms. Again, I haven't come to city council meetings for a really long time, so I'm not sure what exactly would be the reasoning behind kind of disciplining or sanctioning a couple of city council members. But it seems like using, your position and authority as city council and mayor as a government action, to take what could be perceived as retaliatory actions against two council members for private actions on their own private time, participating in government as private citizens, is not a good look and probably isn't a great idea. So, if as city council members, you don't like something that's going on, or as a mayor, city council, you have avenues that are open to you as private citizens. It might be, writing a letter to the editor, creating a petition. You can even gossip at the Dexter Forum. I mean, there's plenty of ways as a private citizen that you can, kind of get your message out. When I was on the Dexter School Board, they did actions like this, I would say fairly regularly, where I remember Dick Lundy told me I wasn't allowed to take notes at my own meeting. I said at the time, I will quote myself, I said, that's baloney. And he said, well, okay, you can take notes, but you can't share them with anybody. Well, then I had to start my notes from the school board meeting on social media because, that's just a silly thing to say to somebody. I know Julie Shoemaker told me I wasn't allowed to write letters to the editor. I mean, as a private citizen, that isn't really how it works. And so I would just caution you to be careful crossing the line between your city council and your mayor duties and the things that take place on behalf of government and the things that happen private citizens on their own time, yourselves and, and others. And so I did, I kind of phrased this online. I was like, what would you call it if a government entity sort of retaliated or changed committee assignments based on things they didn't like that were private actions? And I'll just tell you, I didn't put words out, but the words I got back were tyranny, retaliation, petty, insecure, and corruption. So it's just really not a good look to do that. I hope that's not what you're planning to do. And then I guess I'm kind of probably almost up, but I do want to say that, I have some feelings about the changing the location of the fire station. And I feel like, we all know that there were different options and there were community meetings, and I attended one of those at the library. And it's also not a great look to kind of wait until Mr. Cousins passes away and the city fire chief retires to take down the sign and, you know, I know the language of the ballot, but it feels like basically it was switched on the community based on one single vote at a city council meeting. So I think it should be a community vote. I think there's a good chance that the community would decide that the current location is great and you should update it. They may decide that they like the other property up on Meadowview, but that's really, it's a huge decision. It's a huge impact. Again, on our taxes, on the services that we receive. And I think having it hinge on one vote at city council, I also don't think that's a great idea. So let's see if there's any last thing. I think that's it. So anyway, thank you for your time and thank you for your service. And I do appreciate the well management and this, we love living here and we appreciate what you do. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate your time. Good evening.
Hello,
Please state your name and address.
my name is Kathleen Brandt. I'm a Scioto resident. I live on Roseland Drive.
What was your first name?
Kathleen,
Kathleen, sorry, thank you.
last name is Brandt, B-R-A-N-T. First, I want to say, this is a really nice community. I really enjoyed the kids' presentation. I come to Dexter a lot for restaurant services. I really enjoy Dexter. I'm here today because I want to comment on the proposal that was just presented that Dexter should annex some of Scioto's property. So I just want to give a history on this, that Mr. Luton came to the Scioto. Well, first of all, I'm very active in Scioto Township affairs. You may have heard of some of our problems, 3 years of late audits, state audits, other problems. I started a group called Scioto Fiscally Concerned Citizens, and we're trying to do oversight on how things happen in Scioto Township, especially things related to financial records. So I've been at most of these meetings that I'm going to discuss. Actually, I've been at all of them. July 26, 2022, Mr. Luton came to the Scioto board meeting, and he presented a proposal about engaging in a 425 agreement. He stated his benefits, his reasons. There was, the Scioto board asked plenty of questions. There was recap of the history of that property and some of the reasons it hadn't already been developed. And the Scioto board said they would consider the proposal. And then last Thursday at our Land Preservation Commission, I first heard about this proposal that was being submitted to you, that you unilaterally annexed this property. That's the first time I heard of it. As you heard from Flintoff today, that's the first time 6 out of 7 of our trustees had heard about this. So I just started doing some research. I looked at your meeting minutes, and I find out that the Scioto supervisor has been meeting clandestinely with the mayor on this very project multiple times with Mr. Luton, with Barry Lonick, who happens to be a consultant on land preservation to Scioto Township. So this is very disturbing that our supervisor does things behind your back. This is not the first time he's done this. He does this a lot. I wanted to let you know that, first of all, Barry Lonick is not a legal representative for Scioto Township. This should have been proposed jointly. Unfortunately, our supervisor, Mr. Hathaway, is not an honorable person. He does lots of things with developers privately, and then the residents and the trustees find out about it. And sometimes it's after the fact that the horse is out of the pasture, so to say. And I urge you not to just take some feedback from him that this is something Scioto wants to do. I don't know what Scioto wants to do. We obviously like to preserve land, but at what cost? And that's something that our entire board should be discussing and allow citizen input. There are a number of us that provide input at every board meeting. So I'm here to give you some of that background. I'm going to ask that any further action on this, that you contact the entire Scioto board with any thoughts, ideas, directions regarding this proposal. It seems dastardly to me that a developer goes behind the citizens' back and our entire, and most of our board to put together a proposal. He bought agricultural land. He bought a piece of property that is zoned for agriculture. He took a risk if he doesn't want to do agriculture there. So why should any government alleviate him from that risk and say, fine, you can develop that. You bought ag land, keep it as ag land. I'm sure Scioto would be interested in making an offer to preserve the land. Thank you so much. I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Kathleen. Kathleen, I just want you to know that all of those meetings I made very public as a part of my mayor's report each and every time. Just so
And
there
that's how
was no convalescence out of anything, so.
I understand that.
Okay.
Unfortunately, we didn't get it back from our own representative. That's where I got the information, so I appreciate
No
it.
problem.
Good evening,
Good evening.
Jillian Carey. I am the Scioto Township trustee, and I am here regarding the Lutton proposal. I have been very involved in Scioto for about 5-6 years now, and I ran for office, and it was a special election back in November, and I won. So I'm a down-to-earth type person, and I don't want to say no to anything. I don't want to say yes to anything either without being fully educated. And also, I got involved because I wanted to see a different type of community. I was tired of the back door, the quiet, not the lack of transparency and whatnot. And when this was brought up to me, because of the LPC meeting, somebody, it was a resident that said, hey, you need to listen to this. And I kind of blew it off, but then I ended up watching it and I was like, what? Why is this developer going to the Land Preservation Commission and not the board? Now, I know back in July, I believe it was July 26th of 2022, that he did come in front of the board. I wasn't on the board yet, but I still sat in and listened to everything. So, and I understand his predicament. This is an interesting parcel, but now that we have something in front of us, I wanted to look more into the details. And going back, Scioto and Dexter has a long history regarding annexation and different parcels of land. And I think that for the most part, I know we've had issues. Don't bring up the fire department. Okay, well, anyways, I did. So I want to create a community where we can work together. And hopefully we can do that, even if this doesn't go anywhere, or maybe it does, but that we sit down together as a council and a board and work together. So with that said, I would really like to, for us to create something in the future, near future with this. And just to reiterate, the LPC, the Land Preservation Committee, is just a committee. They are an advisory committee to the board. We need to be fully informed before we take action, and they don't have the authority to do anything. So I look forward to working with you, and hopefully we can create a good situation here. Thank you.
Thanks for coming today. Is there anyone else in the audience who would like to speak this evening?
Yes, I'd like an unscheduled minute.
You're welcome to have something.
I dispute this allegation that these meetings were clandestine and being hidden. We have made an application through a program that has existed for 20 years in Scioto Township, plus minus, back in either August or September. And this was a follow-up to that application. I am hearing at Scioto Township tomorrow night. The whole world is learning since the 13th of April, when I met with the Land Preservation Commission. Now, here it is, 11 days later and 12 days tomorrow, and I'm going to be briefing the Scioto board. We will work through all the organized systems that we need to. We don't have anything to hide. This plan that I've described for you tonight has literally come together in the last 120 days, and we're now ready to talk about it. One other comment I will make. In terms of the economics, today, the parcel of land that we're talking about for annexation has a total tax bill of about $20,000 a year. Of that, I haven't calculated Scioto's portion, what they receive in dedicated Scioto Township tax, but it is much less than 20,000. I'm certain that it is less than $5,000 a year. So the economics for Scioto are not a dominant factor here. The need for water and sewer is the reason for the annexation request and adding some housing for Dexter. I am not at war with Scioto. I have lived there for 42 years, quite comfortably. We have had some real political dislocation in the last 2 or 3 years, and a lot of allegations being made. I have met with Will Hathaway and the consulting engineer multiple times over the last 24 to 36 months. Some of those meetings, 2 of those meetings, the mayor was involved in. We're not hiding things, we're trying to be creative. And this annexation piece is an extremely logical piece to get developed into housing within the city of Dexter. I'll leave it there. Thank you for listening. Scioto's going to be interesting, I recognize.
Thank you, David. Welcome.
Hi. This is Gamma, 1960 Baker Road. So I am one of the properties that will be relatively immediately affected by this plan. And this is the least bad plan that has come across in the 10+ years we've been there. Obviously, this has been in limbo for a very long time. The land preservation aspect is great. My backyard will largely remain the same. Cool, all for it. And I also recognize that there is a need that Many Hands is going to fill. I've looked through the website, it seems great, it seems like a utopia. If something is too good to be true, oftentimes it is, that being it's not there yet. My biggest concern is there's a lot of funds needed for Many Hands to get this off the ground. If for some reason those funds were not able to be met, what happens to that parcel? Does it stay agricultural? Is it now agricultural residential? Can it be sold again to build more houses or what have you? And I recognize that that's not your problem, that's Scioto's problem. But it seems to me that this doesn't go through unless all 3 pieces go through. So that's some bits to consider. We'll be at the Scioto meeting tomorrow to see what has to be said. But this property has been there for a long time. Nothing has happened. Mr. Lutton would like to get out of it, it seems. And if you have the capacity to bring on these new houses, then it seems like everyone can walk away fairly happy. So that's my piece. Some immediate residents in the area seem to be on board. We'll see what happens when Many Hands does indeed have a proposal. But it seems like a not bad option to take. Thank you.
Allison, how do you spell your last name?
SUGIYAMA, you know, the usual way.
Thank you. I just didn't catch it. Appreciate it. And you said 1960 Baker?
Yes,
Thanks for coming tonight.
You're welcome.
Is there anyone else in the audience who would like to speak this evening? Okay, we have quite a few people online who may even have a hand.
I know my name from Elk Phillip.
Okay, can you mute her, please? Or him?
Okay, I think am I on now?
Yes, welcome.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for listening to me. This is actually regarding the location of the fire station, and I guess it builds a little bit on Barbara Reed's comments. I'm sorry, I didn't give you my address. Yeah, Lisa Phillips,
Thanks, Lisa.
3360 Edison.
Okay, very good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I read in the mayor's report that he wants to discuss the potential charter amendment that appears to be circulating. I'll tell you that it is circulating. I'm circulating that petition, and I feel quite strongly about it that the location is not optimal downtown. There are 10 negative influences and 7 positives for the Mav, I'm not sure how you pronounce it, location, 1 negative and 16 positives. After speaking with many residents circulating this petition, they were very surprised to learn the location would not be at Meadowview. So as Barbara said, I think this should be a decision for all of the voters. This should be on the ballot. We should decide, not 7 council members. It's a lot of money. The bond was voted in, so we're stuck with that now. I feel people didn't read it closely enough to see that there was still a choice. It hadn't been decided. I think that's it. I appreciate you listening to my comments.
You're welcome. Thanks for taking time to attend the meeting. We have no hands, Josh, can you help me?
I have no other hands.
Is there anyone online wishing to speak? If so, please raise your hand.
I have no other hands.
Okay, thank you, Josh. Okay, I think that concludes the non-arranged participation portion of the agenda. So we'll move down to item F. Are there any declarations of conflicts of interest to declare? Seeing none, we'll move on to item G, which is approval of the agenda. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
I move to approve the agenda as presented.
So,
Moved by Alden, second by Felker. Thank you both. Any discussion? Okay,
I would move to approve the agenda striking M3 and M4.
there a motion to amend the motion?
Yes, I will move to amend the motion to approve the agenda by amending it to strike M3 consideration of organizational matters with the division and M4 consideration of assigning addresses to bond officers in the solution.
Okay, is there a second for that motion to amend? Seeing no second. We're back to the original motion to approve the agenda. Any further discussion? Wayne?
Yeah, so I guess my motivation for seeking to amend that is that those are 2 consideration items that best as I can tell, lack sufficient information to properly notice the council as to what it is we're being asked to consider under M3 and M4. And I know just a couple meetings ago, I think we were awaiting details on a proposal from OHM, and so it showed up as a consideration item, but we were notified, hey, if we don't hear back in time, to provide that information, we'll go ahead and strike it from the agenda. So that's what we did. I still do not know what we're being asked to consider for M3 and M4.
So under M3, there's a couple of things I'd like to point out. One, we need to add to the organizational matters, the subcommittee that we approved at the last meeting, for one. And then I would like to have a discussion on this charter manual that under my agenda, I'd like to better understand what that is, how it's being put out there, what the potential impact is that anybody might understand. I'd love to do that together. Okay. I do think that it's important that when council members are representing this body on boards and commissions, that they're representing the interests that council is presenting. One thing to have an opinion, nobody's suggesting that you can't have an opinion. It's another to actively work against something that council has decided in an active format, and I'm not clear, there's been 2 meetings now where the meetings have ended with council member comments that have not been clarified at the following meeting. So I've taken under my report to talk about that or ask some questions about that. I'll give everybody a chance to let me know what you know. Because I appreciate being included in what's going on a little bit and how it might benefit or harm the community. And under M4, my understanding, we only have 1 more meeting to decide any changes to the resolution that might be needed before that's finalized for bond resolution. Is that correct? So today's the last meeting to do that. Otherwise, the final reading from the schedule. I don't think I need to put the schedule back in there, because we just talked about this 2 weeks ago, but it might make sense for us to clarify where we intend to spend that money. So I would like to lead that discussion and get your thoughts. And I've been on town all week. That's the best I can do is get them on the agenda. Okay, and I'm happy to, again, have a discussion on it. And if there's potential action on either one of them, great. But I do for sure think that we have to add a subcommittee to the organizational matters at a minimum. So. Yes, Jane?
Isn't there some guidance? I mean, my understanding is that you had specific actions in mind, and those specific actions have not still, I guess, been shared with the community. So it's not clear to me that those items have been properly noticed and can be accepted onto the agenda without sort of a super majority.
No, they can be. The potential is to clarify where we want to spend the money, what properties we build, we'll spend the money. It's not a new topic. It's come up briefly before, we haven't made a decision on it or anything. And anybody has a discussion on it, and I'm being honest, I think that the bond resolution ought to be assigned to the property that we're planning on making improvements on. Which is.
It's not clear why that was included in the package. It's new.
I've been on the town and didn't get a chance to type anything up, Katie. Okay, everybody on this broadcast can hear it, everybody who's online, everybody in the audience can hear it. Jack?
Yeah, so without saying addresses, I mean, we had the materials from Councilmember Samafaro. Are these the addresses we're supposed to be considering? This speaks to the not knowing what we're
I
doing.
don't even know what's in there. I didn't even know there was this in there.
My concern as a council member is we don't know what addresses to be prepared to discuss. For example, if we're discussing the DPW facility, that property, a significant portion of it is not property that the city owns. A significant portion is owned by MDOT. We built on their property and we got permission to use it. So if we're going to be saying we're going to be doing improvements there related to fire facility, whether it's temporary or permanent, we ought to have had time to do that research, to have council check with MDOT to see if that's consistent with the terms of the easement we have with them. So we don't have a full information to take action on certain items because we haven't received information on it before.
Well, go ahead, Joe.
We're approving the agenda, we're not debating that.
I didn't even know what was in there. I'm sorry, I didn't have a chance to do this.
No, I mean, the whole idea of the agenda is to discuss the issue at the time it comes up on the agenda, not. have
Right, I agree, I agree.
And we've already not seconded the motion to remove those items from the agenda, so.
Right, we're on, right.
You did ask for discussion.
Yeah, I did, and I'm happy to have it, if it makes more sense to have it, I don't appreciate that. Okay, further discussion on approval of the agenda. Okay, please call the vote to approve the agenda.
Travis,
Yes.
Sammy Terrell,
Yes.
Hubbard,
Yes.
Griffin,
No.
Alday,
Yes.
Schlaf,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yes. Okay, motion is approved. Agenda, we have agenda. We have no public hearings this evening. We have 2 communications in the packet. The upcoming meeting list and a letter from Dexter Township to Detroit Edison. Are there any comments or questions on either of those communications? Seeing none, we'll move down to our first report this evening. First report is from our finance director, treasurer, assessor, Marie Sherry. Welcome.
Good evening, council. So you have my report in the packet. The only thing I would like to add to that is to let you know on the check fraud issue. Washington County has the county treasurer has kind of taken a lead role within the county because it's been multiple communities that have been affected by this. And they were in contact with me. Our sheriff, our deputy was particularly proactive in contacting the post office general, inspector general, who contacted me. And then I in turn gave his contact information to the county employee that is heading up this kind of trying to consolidate. You could just have multiple communities, multiple banks, multiple sheriff deputies, multiple police reports. So I just want to let you know that they're trying to like consolidate everything and kind of move forward with trying to figure out. That's the only update I have. Do you have any questions on my report?
When do you think the appraisal for the Old National Bank property will be?
I don't have a timeline yet, but we are on some deadlines, so probably within the next couple months.
That was my only question. But questions from Marie? Yes, go ahead, please.
I would like to discuss the budget amendments that appear as part of the consent agenda. If I'm allowed, I would like the motion that we remove K2 from the consent agenda. And that it would be added as,
Okay, so we should have done that as part of the motion.
I understand that.
Agenda. Okay.
Yeah.
Can we just make a quick, can you make a quick motion to do that then?
Yes, I'd like to move that we remove K2 from the consent agenda and add it as six.
Okay, is there a second? Second. Okay, I'll second, right? Thanks, Bill. Any discussion on removing K2 and placing it as this? Please call the vote to amend the agenda to move K2 to the 10th.
Griffin,
Yes.
Michelle,
Yes.
Alday,
Yeah.
Schlaf,
Yeah.
Sammy Terrell,
Yes.
Hubbard,
No.
yeah.
Yes. Okay. Other questions here? Or is that all?
No, thank you.
Any further questions from Marie? Lot of info here, okay.
One other thing, just by the way, our tax collection is almost exactly the same percentage as last year. That's good.
Okay, great. Great. Tim, welcome.
Public service.
The public services superintendent.
How was everybody tonight?
Good.
Good, thanks. So again, get to the important part, your question, those things you want to do.
Go ahead, Jane.
I just have a comment on the water tower work, which is underway. So I don't know if it's just a combination of wind or what, but I know we've had some neighbors who have had paint chips in their yard for after the power washing. I don't know if in the future, if there's gonna be work like that, if the immediate neighbors could be notified to expect that letters can go out, or I don't know what our policy is when work is happening adjacent to people, but I think they were surprised to go out to the backyard and see paint chips.
We can look into that, but it's, once it's done, we wanted to get this done for over 20 years, probably.
Right.
So, but if you have some addresses, I can you know, unless they pick them up. or-
Right, I mean, yeah, I think it's fine, it's like, it's happened, and so in hindsight, I would have raised that issue too, to say, hey, we have a few neighbors who live in close proximity, we should at least maybe let them know this is gonna be happening, specifically. And then one other comment, so I've been down Cushing Port, the port, and there are a number of water stop boxes that are just sitting in gaping holes, now dirt, that have been dug out presumably for some city work.
Yep.
And I don't know what obligation the city has to go back and repair if the work was done in the winter. Are we just expecting that residents are gonna fill that in and reseed it?
No, it's part of the project that we're doing for the potholing. So I have a company that's gonna be coming back. It's probably gonna be, I'd say early May, to come back. I'm trying to get the tower done. And once this is done, I'm gonna start moving forward with more potholing. And then that company's gonna come back and they'll grass seed and, put the black dirt down, straw and everything. Those, curb boxes themselves should be lowered. They'll take another look, but they're supposed to do that last week.
Okay, so there are plans to come back and
Absolutely.
repair that.
Absolutely.
Okay,
That's part of the contract. Well,
okay. I don't know if residents are aware of that.
yeah, no.
And is it only that street? Are there other streets? where
Right
that-
now, it's not that straight, but there will be more.
Okay,
So it's, because of, through the state of Michigan, we have to go through any areas that we are 100% sure if there's galvanized piping or not.
right,
So that's,
yeah,
but the contract is that it's for each hole, for them to open it, and then close it, and then come back and do a restoration to it. But I wanted to make sure, in fact, they wanted to put pea gravel on there, and I told them, no, I wanted 2NS sand, which is a compacting sand that compacts really well. So it shouldn't be, when I was up there a couple weeks ago, it wasn't too many deep holes, it was a little bit of an indentation, but it's enough where they can just throw some black dirt down and some grass seed and you can go, good to go.
okay, if it's not already standard in how we notify residents that the city will come back or the contractor will come back and repair it, I would just encourage you to include that, so they know that. Maybe that was already done.
We told all the residents originally, I mean, they've asked when, and I try to tell them that, I like to try to settle. So we're not doing it 3 or 4 different times.
Right, okay, thank you.
Tim, how many total exploratory activations like that are we doing? Maybe you said it. and I said it.
21 so far?
With the current contract, but, and I don't know, if they're coming back, is our, successful drinking water asset management grant. Which we got another 100,000 to, continue the problem. And so we'll be able to do significantly more with that, which, I mean, all this work is required by the state of Michigan, so it's nice of them to give us money to do the work that they're requiring, so.
And it's 5% a year for 20 years. So, and it's, they're not specific. I mean, if we want to wait till last year, we can do them all at once, but they're not, we don't want to do that. We were actually budgeting every year, and this grant will help out a lot. Save some money.
Thank you. Yeah,
DPW report the salt shed.
Oh, sorry, so as they push it up, the one side doesn't have, I think Kirk called it a dead man's fall, whatever, to back it up. So the one side on the right side of the salt shed is starting to bowl a little bit. So we're having some contractors come in and see what we can do, and take a look at it.
Thank you.
Jim, what is the BTE tree walk on 4th Street?
That's what we discussed. So BTE came on, correct me if I'm wrong, Justin's, Michelle too.
I was in.
So basically they came through and they're doing a walkthrough to see what trees that they can trim up and stuff like that, and what has to be removed, and we're supposed to.
I'm working on letters to the residents because it's the entire length of 4th Street, starting at Ron and then almost all the way to Inverness. And all of the trees that are on the south side will have some level of trimming. It will be significant, and some trees should be removed as a result, but that's a big elephant to digest, so I thought it might be more easy for residents if they got sent a letter that this is what's happening. Identify the different species that could be replanted for them so that they don't grow up into lines. But I'm hoping that gets done either by the end of this week or next week.
So are those in the right of way or they have an easement?
They're in the right of way.
So we have to give permission then?
We have to get permission,
So they have to agree before any trimming will be done.
and they have. They're not going forward with any of the trees on Fourth Street unless we already know from a resident that they were okay with it. And the one resident of the Hainesville.
Thank you.
Are we gonna talk about this as part of her report instead of doing it during Tim's or?
It was on the, it was right there.
No, I understand. I have some questions for Michelle.
Whatever. We can talk about it.
We'll do it here.
Okay, that's fine.
Thank you. Sorry, Tim.
Anybody else? Wow, specify the Billy Goat.
Yeah, I was gonna say, thank you, so I didn't have to ask.
So obviously we got the tower started, everyone knows that, they did the spot repair, which is probably where the chips came from. The welding was done, they had to come back and finish that up. I went up there today, it looks like they came in on Sunday, did some work. Usually don't work on Sundays, but because of the timing. Well, with the weather too, we're trying to get as many days as we can to get this done and over with. They were hoping and anticipating to get the first coat finished today, obviously that didn't happen. So we'll look at that tomorrow, around 2 coats and then I'll go to Sunday. So hopefully we'll get it in a couple weeks. We have the pedestal for the pump for the Huron lift station, and we're hoping to have that done next week. So go back to 2 pumps instead of just one, realign them. And then we have for our first safety class meeting on Thursday. Sat down with Justin and Josh, we sat down and went through it. So starting every other Thursday, we'll have safety meetings with everybody.
Tim, I did have one more question. What was the efficiency rebates discussion relative to DTE? It's under sewer, it's like the. Eric bullet down.
So Eric did, when we did the blower a couple of years back.
Yeah.
It's been a while. We got rebates because of the VFDs and stuff that were going in, correct me if I'm wrong, then.
Variable
Frequency drives. So we just did all these drives at Ryan Drive. I wouldn't say it slipped my mind, it didn't even cross me that we did anything. So he reached out to DTE and we sat down and we're gonna get, I think around $4,300, almost from the project back in rebates.
Wow.
Yeah, when it comes to that rebate stuff, he's on top of it.
And on Ryan, that's the sewer thing?
No, it's a well house. He,
Okay.
the mayor is part of the sewer, so when he does,
Yeah, okay, so this is, all right.
Yes.
Not fine.
yeah, sorry about that.
No, that's okay.
So he'll give me his report, and it will be, once we put them all together, he has his with the water, and a couple things he'll do, so they'll put it down there.
It's really based on electricity that we're saving, not having that hard to start. And then
Yes.
slowly it ramps up, so.
It's awesome.
Yeah. Cool, thanks, appreciate the time on that.
No problem.
Next up is our community development manager. Hi, Michelle, how are you?
I'm fine. How is council this evening?
Good.
Okay, okay. The children are lovely this evening, and I want to thank you for the warm welcome that you provided them. I had an awesome time meeting with them, talking with them about trees, but overall, I was absolutely in awe of the work that they did and the teachers that take them through this, so it's one of the nice things about this job. Lots of nice things, but that was one of them. So, excuse me, you've got my report in front of you. There are also some comments that I provided for you in the supplement. Before I go into detail about any of them, what would you like to talk about?
We're gonna start with the trees on.
I hate to do that, but it's fresh, right?
That's fine, go ahead.
I just had a couple questions. First of all, I want to thank you for meeting with me and my wife and all the other neighbors I seen you outside with. I think that's very important for our community, for our council, or for you to meet and discuss. The only thing, we gotta have our trees taken down. I mean, by the time they get done, they're gonna be in bad shape. And as, do you know, you're getting a handle on how many trees we gotta replace now, I take it.
I will know, based on the list that we have, I will know which ones I think should come down, based on the trimming that's gotta be done.
Right.
Let me step back a little bit. There are different types of trimming that DTE has to do. With Dan's trees, he's got 2 beautiful tulip trees in front of his house. They're almost directly under the lines. So they literally have to be chopped off, just, not at the ground, but in the middle of the tree canopy. I don't know how it will survive after that. I can tell you aesthetically, it's gonna look awful. But DTE has a mandate from the federal government on how they're supposed to trim trees. It's a 10-foot radius from where the different lines are. So, with Dan's, like I said, it's just cut off mid-canopy, that's it. For some of the trees, because they're not directly under the line, they might be a little off-center, they get what's called a shelf cut. So it's halfway and up. I'm sure you've seen those look awful too. If that's happening on trees like the old silver maples or honey locusts that are in really bad condition, we can ask DTE to do what's called a heavy trim for future city removal. I personally think that in those situations where those trees are already compromised as far as their health, due to age, due to weather, due to many different things, that we should have the heavy trim. It will save the city costs in the future for us to have to do it, and DTE is willing to do it. I think we should take advantage of that. The other one is a minor trim, where just a few branches here or there get trimmed. You're gonna notice it, but it's not going to be the drastic shelf or the lotted off of the mid canopy. Excuse me. Like Dan said, I went out with Sean, thank you, from DPW and the gentleman from DTE, and we went down the entire block looking at the different trees. I have an extensive list of the type of cut they want to do, the type of tree it is, and what the condition of the tree is, and what DTE's cut recommendation is, and what my recommendation would be from the city standpoint. I know that I'd be asking, and so would city council be asking for just a whole lot of heartache and stress. If I just told DT, yep, go ahead, you told me what to do. You've got a blanket permit, you go do that. Because the residents have an emotional connection to the trees. I think you already know that, but I'll say that for the public's benefit. As such, I think it's important that I let the residents know this is what's coming down the pipe. If your tree has to be heavy trimmed, it will be removed at a later date by the city and it will be replaced. It probably will be replacement, either spring of 24 or fall of 24, because I need time to work with the, our tree supplier to get the trees. My thought is if somebody wanted a tree sooner than that, then the resident cost sharing is an option. Excuse me, if they don't, like the Hayneses, for example, I explained to them what I just explained to you, they don't want to lose their trees. They have 2 very beautiful maple trees, if I remember right, and a I think it's an elm of some sort. But they're both in very good, they're all 3 are in very good condition. They are willing to trim. And so DTE you'll see them trimming those on 4th Street. But other than that, there aren't any others that they're going to trim at this time. I'll send the letters out, see what feedback I get from the residents. And since I don't know what their feedback could be, I don't want to wager a guess as to what my next step should be. I'll wait to see what feedback I get, work with Justin, work with DPW, come up with a plan for it, present it to council and get feedback.
Thank you. Zach? I would also offer, or recommend contacting folks with the village of Shepherd. I say that I grew up there. We have 150-year-old maple trees every 15 or 30 feet along the right of ways. And they don't do the same level of trimming here. Now it's consumers power, but there's likely subject to the same rules as DTE is here. They don't do any of the crazy cutting. So it may be worthwhile to contact them and see how they're able to push and pull.
Okay.
Yeah, fine.
When exactly are they doing the trims? Or is it this spring?
They would have done it 3 weeks ago. Before they even let us know, but they know that, they know in the city of Dexter to at least to contact my office so that we've got some idea of what they're doing in this situation where it's this comprehensive, they're willing to wait.
There's no chance they want to put them on the ground.
Well, we did have that conversation when we met DTE, which I can go right into the next update. It was a very interesting, conversation. They obviously feel that they're working very hard to prevent, situations like what happened, with the ice storms. And obviously, I think everybody understands, they don't create the weather, but they are the ones that have to deal with the negative impacts that the weather did bring in this case. Which is why after our meeting, we asked them to identify what are the things they're doing or have done in the city of Dexter, to make sure things like this don't happen. There's no way to get rid of it 100%, but they did provide, and it's in your supplement, the things that they've done in the last 10 years, and it's to a tune of more than $15 million, both in the city and at the Calais station out in the township, because our substation supplies us, but it also supplies the township. The Calais station out in Dexter Township does the same thing. It services the township, but those lines also come into the city. So the new substation out there is helpful for both the city and the township. There has been significant rebuilding of the overhead poles coming out of the 2012 tornado. I was not here with the city at that time, but those of you who were know what they're talking about. You'll recall that 2 years ago, 2019, before COVID, that summer, late summer, early fall, all of a sudden there was a shutdown over the weekend of the 2nd Street Diamond Station. That's because they found, before it happened, a problem with the transformer. And it was a significant problem that had it blown, it would have been at least a week. And the city and township would have been without power. So the fact that somebody recognized it in a routine line check, it was an inconvenience for about 24 hours for most of us, 48 for some others, especially a business or two in the industrial part. But the fact that they were able to get that transformer in and out was huge. They also talked about how they have upcoming upgrades in the city to the tune of about $7 million. Everything from the dining station again. Excuse me. There's multiple circuits and other performance equipment upgrades that they're doing. And then the pole top maintenance inspections that are coming in 2024. It's not an easy thing, and I understand how residents get upset. It's hard when our electricity is down for our water tower, which is why we put in to the CIP a generator for it. Yes, there's a small generator there, but that's something we don't want to go down at any time. So we're looking at what we can do as staff in those situations. Do you have any questions for us regarding the DTE?
But we have literally spent $1 million trying to protect ourselves from DTE. Every lift station, every plant, everything we have. I mean, and that's respectively, we should have that, you know what I mean? But we have spent, the city has spent a lot of money and making sure that everything we have is up front, always for it. So, thank you.
Did they detail any plans to add a new substation at the Dan Foley property?
No, we did not broach that subject at all,
Okay.
but that's certainly something we can talk about.
Do you know, are the folks in the industrial park okay with their brown power problems they had in the past?
I know that there, pre-COVID, there were, NOCO especially. Since coming out of COVID, I have not heard anything from any of the businesses. Doesn't mean it's not happening, but usually when it did, we would get informed.
Thank you.
Okay. Let me see what else we have. I will be following up with Mr. Lutton because we did that application or the letter. I've been working with Justin. We have a draft and this application that provides Mr. Lutton. He will be responsible for providing the $1,000 application fee. That's been in your fee schedule for prior to my being here, so I'll go through that again. Mill Creek Flats, that is the name of the proposed development that Mr. Penn and his team are looking at on Grand Street. They have let me know that they're going to be submitting for conceptual PUD review the first week in May, which means it will be on Planning Commission's June agenda and City Council's agenda the following week. Again, conceptual gives the feedback to the developer. No action taken, nothing's binding, but it helps them prepare for the preliminary in a much better way. I think that's it, unless you have any other questions for me. Arbor Day, qualifications, times, second page of my report. And if anybody wants to help prep these, Friday morning, 7 o'clock here, I'm happy to have you come home.
So, Michelle, before you step away, if you would, please, does anybody have questions about your 3045 Broad Street information that she shared? Thank you for putting it in the packet so everybody can see.
Yeah. And I did get the recording out to Mr. Chesney. Okay.
Good, glad, thank you for doing that. Does anybody have questions about what she's put here? Or Joe?
I just have one on the very first page, on page 44 of 162, where it lists out updated sources and uses.
Go ahead.
So the source that they list out, a loan, another loan, a grant, brownfield grant or loan, and then required equity, I assume, is the required equity what essentially they're putting
Correct.
into?
That's what they have to come up with.
And they're anticipating it's gonna be a $62 million.
That's what they said, yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, so if playing off of that slide on page 44, if you would flip, if everybody would flip down to 47. They put together 4 scenarios and presented that to the subcommittee. And if you look at the different Broad Street land prices there, they have 0, 250,000, 200,000, 500,000. They have what they call City of Dexter TIF participation. It's really the inverse of that. They would be asking the DDA to provide 95 or 92 or 94%, that would be the amount of city of debt will be able to keep that amort portion of the tip during the brownfield development. Kind of a weird phrase the way it's put there. And then you'll notice that the first two scenarios, they have cap fees that are low numbers, 175 and 350. They are proposing 154 units. And we have a $3,000 water tap fee and a $5,000 sewer tap fee for a total of $8,000 per unit. So that total is $1,232,000. We last adjusted our tap fees in somewhere around 2006, I think. Okay, after a study of sorts and whatever. They've been consistent since that point, applying mostly to the single family homes that have been developed over the last 16 years, but also any commercial or industrial business that's been done. If we go down further into the slide deck that's here, to page, into the appendices, page 54 of the packet. I asked for some additional scenarios to be run on page 54. There's scenarios 5, 6, and 7. And I realized that, you know, the land is owned by the DDA. And that the TIF capture that is being discussed here is really the incremental TIF capture over and above what the city would receive on the property from the base value. So it's really the DDA's decision on how much to pledge to pay back the cleanup of the land. But they need a scenario where that bottom line, that 5-year internal rate of return is somewhere north of 18.5, between 18.5 and 20.5 is what they have told us. They needed it in order to make the project work. Okay, so if you look at scenarios 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, none of those are above 18.5. They need, well, in order to get from approximately 15% to the 18.5 or 19%, everything they need to increase by 1%, they need $300,000 to come off of their total cost. They need somewhere between $1.2 million and $1.5 million in assistance from the city / DDA. That's what we basically heard. And Michelle's done a good job of starting to explain some options here, but one of the things that I think that one of the things that DDA doesn't control, DDA doesn't control a lot of things. The tap fees are something that are city council determination and control. We have a lot of projects and a lot of parcels in our downtown that we've talked about. You know, adding density to model density, the Millennium Place project that's been approved. You know, this potential project, there's other parcels that could look to do the same thing. It may be advantageous for us to actually think about lowering the tap fees. I know that sounds like a funny concept, but we would never get 154 single family homes on the 3045 Broad Street property. The equivalent of it. I mean, for the same impact assessment. I'll stop. Questions?
So
after the meeting, I did a lot of thinking about all of this. And one of the things I planned on doing, I actually have a call set up with Eric for later this week to talk about some ways to reduce their.
Eric is with Common Sales.
Eric is with Common Sales, sorry. Reduce the financial burden on them where we have tools in the toolbox. In this specific case that I'm gonna talk about, that would be the DDA. So, they're doing their strategic plan update. And they're gonna look at different projects, and you've seen what's in their DDA plan that they've accomplished and what they still need to complete if they'd like to. One of the things that DDA can do are streetscapes. They can bond for those things. They did that for Jeffords and Forest. They did that for the parking behind Main Street. They did that for Main Street. That was back in 1996. One of the ways that, let me step back, digress just a moment. This project, in order to get funding through MEDC, requires some type of commitment from the city, whether it's council, DDA, etc. I think there are ways for the DDA to participate in this project based on looking at Grand Street, not just this portion of it, next to the property, but all of Grand Street, Broad Street, and Broad Street from Forest to Grand, as part of a streetscape project that is in conjunction with this development, that would, if I'm not mistaken, because it's not just road, it's not just putting parking in, it's also looking at whatever infrastructure underground has to be moved and brought in, et cetera. I think those are costs that will handle that 1.5, 1.2 to 1.5.
Well, what I was trying to say, I agree with what you're saying, you're going where I'm going, just put quicker. There is likely a combination of things that the city and the DDA may need to do. The water tap is one example where we could offer, we can't be wishy-washy with the tap fee. We can't have it be 8,000 total for one development and 6,000 for another, and then jump back to 8 and back to, that doesn't work, it's not defensible. But over a period of time, the number could be set or reset and be kept. And what I was trying to explain is that's one area that we might want to think about over the next several months of this, or whatever weeks of this. I'm going to be in front of the MEDC on Wednesday and plan to say that we are looking at ways to continue to invest in this property. I mean, we as a community have spent, $2 million roughly on the way. Participated to remove the substation. If I don't say that, you're not going to get any of the, back up to your initial slide. They're not going to get any of the 9 million that they're requesting. They may not get the 9 million no matter what we do. But I think that my goal in talking about this under the report is, I think we're going to have to talk as a community about some things like this that we might be prepared to do, or that if it happens in the DDA can do as tools if we want some of the redevelopment to occur. Because every pro forma that we're seeing on these, they're not coming to bear without some type of dollars from the city side. Is what I'm seeing. And I don't know if there's a willingness to do that, we're going to decide if they have to, but I didn't mean to.
I want to caution you all on doing anything with tap fees. Tap fees they do a lot of really good things for the city of Dexter, with preventative maintenance. Without those tap fees, or I'd really like to know over the last 10 or 15 years, how much money and what good use. I know personally where them tap fees. I know we gotta do what we gotta do for developments to try to get through that, but we need to have a serious discussion on what we're not gonna be doing and where that money's gonna be coming from if we don't receive tap fees. Because we've been spending the tap fees spot on.
My concern is that all of the easy places to collect tap fees for single family developments are gone. Meaning there's not many empty lots for that. So a lot of what they're doing, a lot of what we're looking at are, the density projects on former single family homes or properties where you're taking an acre and it has one family and we're trying to get 20 or 22 or 25. If we can't help create affordable projects, we're not gonna get any additional tap fees. And so I'm not suggesting tap fees should go to zero. I don't believe that at all. But I do think that, for example, on 154 units, if they were 7,000 instead of 8,000, that's $150,000. That's essentially one of the percent that they're trying to make up. And we would be better off with $1 million in water sewer fees there to try, towards the development. But we need to think about that kind of shift, and I just wanted to plant the seed that I think we need to be thinking creatively. Here, not giving up the whole opportunity for those, but those are important to both their water and sewer fund, and I understand what you're saying.
Thank you.
So,
Sort of on the same lines, but on the other side. All of this is based on some assumption of what we're gonna collect tax wise, what the DDA is gonna collect tax wise. We had a very similar situation with Dexter Wellness. So I don't know what kind of insurances we get, but there's gotta be something that says that these projections that they're laying out for X number of years are gonna come to fruition, and that we're not gonna end up at the state board of review or tax review.
So two things, and I'll say, this isn't gonna be a nonprofit where that was the big thing with Dexter Wellness. It was a nonprofit that bought the property, which we found out after the fact. The second thing is when Grandview Commons went through, they did a brownfield, and they were the first brownfield after the Dexter Wellness. And so we did bake in language to protect ourselves as best we can from that kind of a situation. I think you guys know, it goes without saying, but I'm gonna say it anyway. My goal is to find out and provide you with the tools you can use to make projects work, so you don't have to reduce your fees. Because in order to do that, there has to be a basis of that for reducing or increasing. Either way, you've got to have it. It's, you have to have that. So that's what I'm looking at and finding how this will work out. You may recall the RAP funding that was, that came out during COVID.
which stands for?
I can't remember what the acronym, rehabilitation and something. But we couldn't get those funds before because it was very narrowly geared toward communities that had experienced negative impacts from COVID. Well, they're going to do a second round, but they've just dropped their draft application. And it won't just be negative impacts from COVID, it's also to help communities with development or redevelopment like this project. We don't know all of the specific details of it yet. The application guidelines just got released today. I'm doing a webinar on Wednesday to find out more information about it. That could be additional sums of money that could be used. And the good thing about this one is it doesn't require just the city to apply, the developer can. So we've again been working in cooperation with that developer. But that's a tool that wasn't available 2 weeks ago when we had our conversation, so.
So mostly, I just wanted to make sure everybody at least pays somewhat attention to the slides, read through them, if you have questions, ask them questions. They're trying to get. This is an important meeting for them to initiate their question to the state for funding. And just wanted the council to be aware that we're gonna be asking for some things. In order to potentially make it go. You know, we talked a lot about wanting to have people sort of downtown. And, you know, this development is in the heart of that, that effort, so. Jamie?
Yep, I was gonna also thank Michelle for including these details in the packet. Mayor Q, you had mentioned something about deciding as a community. I don't know if you meant the broader community or council, it wasn't clear to me. What I would like to see or have an opportunity.
The prior city, the prior input that we received on these projects.
Right.
Yeah.
I would be in favor of, I mean, so this is showing up in the staff report, which is fine. I would even welcome the opportunity when it seems like we're getting close to some final plan and I don't know if that's what's happening, that we have a specific agenda item and or a public hearing of some sort to gather formal public input on the specifics of what's being presented and what various options might be. I would appreciate hearing from the public in that in a more formal capacity.
So they won't be going with the formal site plan to planning commission unless we enter into we being the BDA, enter into a purchase agreement of some type so that they can say they have control of the land or the purpose of the lease plan.
It doesn't mean that it's approval of the project.
Doesn't mean it's approval of the project, so until they can show that the performer works, we're not getting to the.
Right, I guess I mean even feedback, what is the public? So what is the DDA on this right now? How many millions of dollars? The $2 million that the DDA on?
1.3 of that. I believe it's 1.3.
So the DDA owns $1.3 million. And so any one of these numbers is significant discount on what the city DDA currently owns on this. So before I think any decision is made as to what even that financing looks like, before any agreement is made, I would appreciate hearing public comment, and I think other people would too, and if they don't, I guess I can arrange them in all spare time. I guess that's what I mean, I would want public input on.
Yeah, we think that any land sale amount would end up getting set aside towards future bond payments of the repayment of the ball. So what's interesting about the scenarios is the higher, at least the last three that I asked for, with the higher land price, they actually have a higher internal rate of return. So I don't know if that's something I expected, but ultimately they're better off if we pledge more of the TIF dollars as a DDA towards the cleanup, a higher percentage of it. And we, in the past, like on Grandview, we pledged 75%. The DDA retained 25%. As each year that the project is coming online and building and tax value is growing, and there's a TIF, that incremental capture, the DDA is retaining dollars each year of the project and contributing 75% of that increment back towards the repayment of the available activities. This project likely requires a higher percentage contribution to that. My preference is not to do 100% because I think the DDA needs to have some revenue gain each year rather than have to wait 11 or 12 years to get in. Anyway, Mr. Chairman, what's thoughts, Chair? I don't have the perfect answer to this, and I'm all for additional public input on it as it unfolds. That's why I kind of talk about it more.
I just want to point out we're getting to close to 9 o'clock. Okay.
Thank you. Yes, 8:50. I thought it was important to talk about.
Last thing, 30 seconds. Our Detroit magazine, did a review of, the 5 different counties, Wayne, Open, Macomb, Livingston and Washburn. And, over those 5 counties, Dexter is rated #1, in the increase in, property sales. Across those 5 counties. So on one hand, it's really good, we've got houses come on the market and they're sold. We're trying to strike that balance, as you know, with providing the attainable and affordable housing. So this is a really demand community. We know it, now everybody knows it. Thank you.
Thanks, Michelle. Okay, the next report that's in the packet is our sheriff's report. Does anybody have any comments, questions on the sheriff's report? Seeing none, we will jump to page 3 of the agenda over to city manager report. Dustin?
Sure, just a couple things. The first is, we got our bond rating back from Standard & Poor's, and we were rated at AA, which is really, really good. Especially for a community of our size. That's a really positive note. Second thing is, the water tower contractor has asked to be able to do work on Sundays. We've given them that approval. We'll get the project over with as quickly as we can and get the water tower back in service. So they'll be essentially working what are normal contractor hours from 7 to 7, 7 days a week. The last thing is in the last couple of city manager reports, I was suggesting that we do Wednesday, May 3rd for a budget work session. But that is going to conflict with an 18th meeting. So I wanted to throw out there Tuesday the 2nd, May the 4th, or the following Wednesday. I was trying to get them all in before we set the public hearing at that first meeting in May. But depending on that, everyone's schedules that may or may not work. I wanted to get any feedback that you all might have on doing a Tuesday or a Thursday.
You can do the Tuesday.
Okay.
So it was May 2nd or May 3rd, that we were.
May 2nd or May 4th, rather than May 3rd.
Would rather do before. We gotta do what we gotta do.
I'll shoot you on if everything can.
Thanks, Justin. Jamie?
I just have a quick question. I don't know what the last hawker peddler permit was that you guys approved. Do you remember what did the, well, I was want to say like clean water action, maybe it wasn't done, it's a business maybe?
So, we did approve clean, well, I mean, you don't. Clean water action doesn't have to ask our permission.
Right.
We do get them to fill it out anyway. We did just get 2 in, I believe. And I don't remember the names offhand.
So I don't know if it was maybe it was the water people, in which case maybe this comment wouldn't apply because they are sort of exempt from that anyways. But I know I saw public comment and I personally experienced somebody coming to my door like at 9 o'clock at night with this friendly knock and it's kind of disconcerting. Again, you know, they're exempt from that, that's fine. I just didn't know if for businesses, if we could have earlier and then stopping point.
Yeah, so for standard hawker peddler permits, we do limit, I think it's like 9 or 10 a.m. to like 6 p.m. Clean water is exempt from that, and they do like to canvass very, very early in the morning and very, very late. And we have told them that folks don't like that, please don't do it. They said, we don't care, we're gonna do it anyway.
Okay.
And they do. And then we get calls and sheriff gets calls and.
Okay, thank you.
With the water restriction we have on with the water tower, and I haven't been keeping track, 'cause I know we send out a lot of emails. Is that something that's a weekly email to remind people with the city email and the water restrictions with the water tower?
So I did it in the last email update, and, I will include it in the next one. I didn't get around to setting it out on Friday. But I'll probably send it out tomorrow. I have a few other things to send out to you, so.
I'm wondering if on them, we're gonna fire up their sprinkler. I had to remind them. Thanks.
Do you have any other questions?
Okay, so I'll jump down to my report. We had a meeting, 2 Fridays ago with our representatives of the city's union staff. The union staff turned down our last offer or tentative agreement that we reached at the table. They did not pass that. And, as part of coming back to us, they've asked if they could do what we could do, a wage study. Particularly for the public works department position. But we're clarifying that. I don't know if we received feedback today. I didn't, I've been online all day. You did receive feedback?
Yeah, so they indicated that they're looking for a wage survey of all positions. Not just DPW.
So we've asked them, there are many positions where we know that we are above the curve on what we're providing salary for our employees on. So part of our question to them was, how do they plan to, obviously the logic would be if we're behind on one area, they want us to raise those hourly wages to some sort of standard or more comparable, if you will. The question would have to, what do we do if we're ahead of the curve? But I wanted to let everybody know that we're evaluating whether to do that, and I think we're gonna potentially get a cost, you council may see a cost estimate for a wage study, which you'll have to approve, so that's not in the budget, and we don't have that worked out yet. So just a heads up on that. I already talked about the common sales stuff that was in Michelle's report. So I wanted to spend some time, the last 2 meetings have ended, I'm going to say semi-awkwardly, over, I think, the same topic. And I'd like to ask, I guess, so what is the potential charter amendment? Somebody, the person suggested that under council comments that it was being circulated, that Barbara. What's going on with that?
Are you compelling us to speak as private citizens?
I'm asking as a fellow council member to understand, what's going on. I mean, I think that we are a group that is supposed to not actively work against the determinations of council. Do you agree with that, or?
That's not an example I've seen set here.
Well, when we purchased the property, we put the sign up. There was a motion made to go for a bond resolution. We were on a different path. I believe it was 9.9 million at the time. And then there was a motion made to undo that. But nobody was working outside of the bounds of the council decisions. All council members that were there, even some who voted for, changed their mind. And that happened in some cases. And I guess what I'm asking is, what does the charter amendment, if anybody has any knowledge, what does it do? What is the purpose of it? Could someone explain that to me, please? Jamie?
After hearing from a number of residents who were dissatisfied, I guess to say the least, with council's vote, we worked together with residents to give voice to the people via a charter amendment. And, I mean, there has been an article in the newspaper about it. I'm guessing you've seen it.
I have not actually.
What the charter amendment is seeking to do is to designate the city-owned land bound by Alpine Street, Main Street, Mill Creek, and the railroad to be designated to be owned, to be kept in public ownership in perpetuity and be designated for active recreation, passive recreation, or both. So it's taking that city-owned land and asking for it to be designated for park use and park use only.
Is that how the language reads?
The gist, yes. I did not read it directly, so I don't have it in front of me.
Okay. Isn't it parkland now? I mean,
It's not
yeah,
designated for
yeah.
active recreation or passive recreation or both. I mean, there's a fire station on part of that property.
Gotcha. And so what document states that there can't be a building on a parkland?
My understanding is it would be land use laws or regulations.
Could you share those? What is the name of the group that's doing this?
Friends of Bellevue Park.
I'm a friend of Milford Park.
Great, join our club.
Oh, so it's our cause. I would like to know more about it, is what I'm trying to ask. And it's not been talked about in this forum. I've not
Well,
received
frankly, at this
email.
point, it's not city business, and so that's why I didn't bring it to the table. It's an issue that
So you are leading it, or you will be bringing it to the table?
residents, if they secure 5% signatures from registered voters, will be submitting petitions to the city office as they're allowed to by our charter.
Yep, understood.
And at some point, I'm guessing that would come to council. And if it comes to council, I would recuse myself from any vote on any resolution regarding that, because I am directly involved in that.
And you don't think that's working against the nature of what we're trying to do as a 7-member board? I mean, if back in, I forget what the year was, 2020, I guess, or wherever it would have been. If the $9.9 million bond resolution had passed, and somebody had put a charter amendment out there to make the map property a park, would anybody been happy with that?
I think
I mean,
that's the
there-
prerogative of individual residents. I mean, I'm happy to go into more details. I mean,
I'm inviting.
okay, so.
I don't know what I need to do.
Okay.
But to-
So I can appreciate that. Let me take one step back. I've talked on a number of occasions that satisfaction or dissatisfaction with situation, service, product. It's the difference between expectations and reality. When reality exceeds expectations, satisfaction. When reality falls short of expectations, dissatisfaction. And so to address dissatisfaction, it's important to evaluate both expectation and reality to determine whether one or both might be adjusted. So we've heard during council comments that there are some members of council who are dissatisfied with my participation, Mr. Michelle's participation with the citizen initiated charter amendment. And maybe there's something about this reality that you want to change. But I think what needs to be evaluated here are the expectations. And so a reasonable person might think, let's look to our council rules document, because that's going to set the expectations for the situation. But we know the reality about our council rules document. That this current and previous councils have a long history of disregarding not only council rules, but also the city charter, and that precedent was set a long time ago. If Mayor Keough cared about following the city charter, he wouldn't have permitted council to take more than 60 days to fill Julie Knight's council vacancy, or more than 180 days to fill the city manager vacancy created reporting Nickel resign.
Katie, you know I tried.
If Ms. Hubbard, Mr. Summerfair, when Mr. Mayor Keough cared about following council rules, Ms. Hubbard and Mr. Summerfair wouldn't have colluded outside of the meeting to make a motion during a discussion item about public safety facilities, and Mayor Keough wouldn't have entertained the motion given that it was out of order. If Mayor Q cared about following council rules, he would permit the character attacks that are regularly directed at this end of the table. If Mayor Q and Mr. Summerfaro cared about preventing previous decisions of council from being overturned, they wouldn't have worked to undo the previous purchase of the former library building voted to be the location of the future city hall. If Mayor Q cared about preventing previous decisions of council from being overturned, he wouldn't have tried to stack the deck of the former public safety facility subcommittee by giving staff members voting privileges. If Ms. Aldig and Ms. Hubbard cared about preventing previous decisions of council from being overturned, they would have agreed to rescind the naming of First Street Park after Paul Cousins. If Mayor Q and Mr. Summerfaro cared about preventing previous decisions of council from being overturned, they wouldn't be proposing to revise the bond authorizing resolution to add specific addresses to it. If Mayor Q cared about preventing previous decisions of council from being overturned, he would have used his mayor's report to express his discontent with the council's decision to purchase the property in Meadowview Drive and erect a sign and then submit those comments to the Sun-Times News, attacking Mr. Michelle's professional expertise as it pertains to land use planning and control law. If Ms. Alday cared about transparency, she would have admitted that at the meeting she attended about this ballot proposal, she urged us to go forward with the idea, so we should totally do it. She would have admitted that at that meeting, she told those of us working on this effort, that what was said during that meeting would be kept between us, that she wouldn't go from one side to the other side sharing information. Yeah, she was the first one who introduced the ballot proposal to council. But my understanding is that it's not about transparency, it's not about following the charter, it's not about following council rules. It's an attempt to silence the voice of council members who on their own private time and with their own private resources are joining with other residents to bring a vote to the people. So here's the reality that your expectation should be based on. We're not elected to be friends. We're not elected to share hugs in the bathroom after a split vote. We were elected to represent and give voice to the people. And to be quite frank, with the exception of a few momentary lapses of reason, I really haven't trusted most of you since before I joined council. But guess what? That doesn't stop me from showing up on behalf of the people. And if continuing to advocate for them puts me at odds with you, I will choose the people every single time.
Well, that was a very well prepared statement. Tell me how you really feel. You know, I have tried since I first met you. Can't control the timeline of everything. Especially related to the charter and that process. I wanted to keep the park named after Mr. Cousins, but I think I'm the only one who voted to not rescind that, so. You know, your accusations are fine. You can have your perception of how things have played out. But I have tried since the moment you joined this council and everybody else has joined this council to create an environment where we could talk to each other and work together on things. I invited Zach to be a part of the committee, at least the alternate. There's gonna be periods where I can't make it. For the fire station design committee, he politely declined that. He's probably got the most knowledge. Okay, based upon his background. We should all be working together, and what I'm questioning is whether you're really doing that, if that's how you're promoting the effects of government. Okay. And I hear these phrases like Friends of Mill Creek Park. Well, I've been a friend of Mill Creek Park long before there was a committee named Friends of Mill Creek Park. And that's that's tactic number one in charter petition organization. Make everybody else feel like they're out if they don't participate or if they aren't a friend. It's a horrible name. Okay, and I'd like to know where it says there can't be a public building on a park. It happens in many other communities. And I don't know if what you just read is what the vote is. I don't see how that has any impact at all. Our master plan shows it as a park now. It's got active and passive, depending on whether you're running or sitting. Okay. So I appreciate that you've let me know that you're comfortable working outside the bounds of the council. That point was made clear. But if that's the case, I don't know why I would want you representing us on the Parks Committee. Can you explain that to me?
Our effort pertains to one park.
Yeah, but you just did a master plan where the building was shown on the master plan.
Parks Committee talks about many other things besides Mill Creek Park. And if it seemed like it was necessary, I would be happy to recuse myself from any discussion of Mill Creek Park.
I would point out, if I may, that if you look at our conflict of interest ordinance, participating in a political campaign that's regulated by state and/or federal government is excluded from conflict of interests.
I understand.
And
There's some common
ballot initiatives are part of political campaign.
I understand, there's no issue. I just think that as a member of council, you should have taken the time to let us know what you're doing. Okay, when we went to become a city, council voted 6-1, I think, to pursue city. Jim Smith was the lone member that did not want to become a city. And when he was organizing public meetings, town halls, in his effort to try and get people to understand why he felt it was important to stay a village, he was doing that, and he let everybody know. It wasn't behind closed doors. I went and looked when you guys set up the committee. You did it 4 days or whatever after Mr. Samaro made the first motion to potentially go to 8140. You didn't tell anybody you were doing that. You asked for the vote to be delayed in the meeting, which is fine, and we did that in honor of trying to get that out in front of people. So, everything may not turn out perfectly. We're trying to all operate under a sense of good government here. Okay, when that phrase gets slung around like there's times where we're not. But we're all trying here, and I'm disappointed that there's not been communication on this. Wow.
I just want to say a couple of things. We can come here and say, after the vote, we had to decide on the location, the residents came to us with opinions, came to me with opinions too. It's not the first time, it won't be the last time that happened, but to imply that now, after we've made the decision that these residents are somehow more important than the hundreds of other residents we've talked to over the last few years, including the people who responded to the survey that was drafted by Councilmember Griffin, in which the question was asked about the location, and it was a very split response, which I think still reflects the greater community. So for us to have made this decision through a democratic process and for it to be a close vote that resembles the feelings of the community, and then for it to have two council members violating a rule that I think is much different than you can't speak 2 times, or even character attacks. If we do that in the meeting, we deal with it. What's happening right now is a constant violation of rule not to undermine. It's not a one-time incident, it is ongoing. And with that said, I resent the accusation that there was some sort of collusion with 3 members of council when that's not a quorum, and we have free speech too, not just you. And also the accusation that I went back on the Paul Cousins thing and Sana went back on the Paul Cousins thing, you all did it. We all did it except the mayor. So to really represent other people that way, that's a personal attack, but I'm not gonna be mad about it. Maybe it's not mad about it right now, but I'm not gonna, raise my hand and tell Sean, oh, I'm getting picked on, and I'm not gonna bring it up again. The people have had so many opportunities, and I'm not saying that the people talking now or responding to this now, that their opinions aren't important, but we have the survey, We have had many public meetings with this topic on the agenda where members of the public could participate online and in person because we tried to make it easier for the public to participate. Then we, on top of that, before the election, we clearly had a meeting where we told people this ballot language does not have a location attached to it. We sent a flyer out to every member of this community that explained the same. Nobody, then the people voted for it. And so now I don't understand how us going to the public isn't going back on what the public has already told us. It's going back on it. They've made the decision at the ballot box, they've made the decisions to come or not come here to talk to us about it. And so for two people on this council to go out and drum this up now, not only, as I've said before, is something I find deeply just inappropriate, but also, I don't know, I just lost my train of thought. But I don't think it's okay. I think that the people have already spoken. And so I don't know what this is about.
Jamie?
I just have a couple follow-up comments. No, I think more to what you had said, or I guess that I have not sought to hide my involvement in this. I mean, no petitions have been submitted. I can talk to residents about any number of things. I can start any number of initiatives. They are only successful when in the case of a charter amendment, 5% of registered voters sign in and they're submitted.
Understood.
I mean, at that point, I'd be more than happy to, address that issue, but nothing is happening. Aside from people going door to door, trying to get opinions. There's nothing I can do on my own. There's nothing I can do even with that. It takes the voters.
What are you hearing?
I'm hearing many people saying, you mean it's not going at Meadowview? I thought that's what we voted for. Over and over and over again. Which is interesting to me personally. I appreciate, we had meetings, we had whatever our information guide. We also had a sign up at the time of the vote.
Did you ask them if they trust the council to figure out how to have a fire service?
One person gave that reply. One person said, I'm happy leaving this to council. Everybody else that signed it, frankly, who's come to the door. So, I am trying. Everybody, I've never hidden the fact that I'm here to give voice to the people, whether it was as a resident before joining council or since being on council. It's happened before and it will keep happening. And I can appreciate that. I don't even know if we could be more effective with a different dynamic. I can appreciate that some of you don't appreciate my approach to do that. Even if we have the same goal, maybe you don't like my approach. And that's fine. Maybe I would rather it be different, but I don't let personalities get in the way of my ability to act on behalf of residents. And I wish that
we share that.
You also could get past whatever it is you feel about me and my approach for doing things, because it doesn't need to keep you either from having productive meetings.
I just work really hard every 2 weeks to put an activities list together of what I'm doing. Whether it plays out or it doesn't play out, whether it's related to the fire station, whether it's related to the Sloan Kingsley property. Okay, I had 4 conversations with 4 SIO trustees. I just met one of the 2 I didn't hear from the last week or today. Nice to meet you. I had a very good conversation with Jessica. I had a very good conversation with Kathleen Knoll, Kathy Knoll. And then last night, I had a conversation with John Reiser and Mark Brazow. I hope I'm saying that right. Mark didn't talk as much as John. Okay, I want to make sure that you know that. I shared with them everything that we've tried to do as council and our goals of asking if we could meet with the South Township Board on numerous occasions. In fact, we all, I hope will remember that Jamie, I asked you and Sanam if you would sit with me as part of the subcommittee if that ever gets formed. I try to be very transparent as best I can, because sometimes you don't agree with, people may not agree with what I say. But I'm not actively engaged against the work of council when I've been in the minority. And I've been in the minority on where the fire station should go in terms of council members for a dozen years. But I was always in favor of making renovations, to 8140, even if it was to the living quarters or the work area. There was just never 4 votes to do it. But I've always been consistent about that opinion. If the vote had gone the other way, I'd be working to help get that 8.4 million spent the right way at the MAV site. But there's 4 council members that felt, or 3 council members that felt otherwise along with me. And I guess I was expecting that we would all be working towards accomplishing that goal. We worked together to get this building opened up. Just seems like unnecessary drama to me related to a service that we provided a high level at and can continue to do that after such a fantastic supporting of the bond resolution language that you helped vote for. We had such a powerful meeting at the end of July to craft that language that went on the ballot, and it was overwhelmingly supported. And I just can't understand. It sounded like you were in support of understanding what that language meant. And now because the location didn't fall, there was no bad choice in that. There was no bad choice in the location. Either way, we're gonna have a great fire station. I don't know. Zach?
You have something to say?
Yeah, I just remembered what my final.
Excuse me, I can call on.
Yeah, I was ceding the floor for her because she'd been waiting.
Okay, thank you.
I do have comments.
I just remembered what I forgot to say at the very end there, that I'm having a hard time not seeing this as anything other than further delay on action to like actually do something about our fire station facilities issues. It's just, it's clear to me that is what this is. We've already gone through this process. We have done the best that we can. We have informed the public as best as we can every time we took a step toward where we are now. And now this is just, it makes me sad because we're here trying to make a difference. And this makes me feel like my last 3 years on council are sort of like, why did I even show up here to have these discussions if this is how it ended up?
Can one of you, can you forward me a copy of the?
There's a website, I can forward you the website.
I mean, Zach?
So I offer the following observations to start. The bell tolls multiple ways. It sounds differently which side you're on. It doesn't just ring one way. No one is the villain in their own story. Everyone believes their actions, their thoughts are the best and the appropriate, and others are not. Sometimes ripping the Band-Aid off is necessary to continue the healing. You need to get the air in there, you need to get the sun to hit the scab. Sometimes pulling it off prematurely, though, causes further infection and sepsis and all sorts of bad things. So we don't give up our rights as private citizens when we're here. And I did not feel an obligation to report activities because I'm able to separate myself as a citizen individual versus me as a table sitting person. Perhaps in the mayor's report, you see yourself as only one single entity, and so every activity is a mayor activity. In my job as an urban planner, we see all these different little bits. So that's ingrained in me that you have multiple spots to play. I do take issue with the characterization of every act. There was no effort to delay or undermine or change previous council's action. I don't want to belabor it, but there's documentation that shows that is inaccurate, and I do suffer a long memory. I see someone breaking something multiple times. Why am I gonna follow? But if this body seems necessary, please censure me, please strip me from all my committees. Do what you have to do.
I don't want to do that. I needed the other one here to have a subcommittee that we approved last meeting. But I do expect that the two of you, when asked, are going to explain what's going on in council, and what the directive of council is. Is that a fair expectation? You talked about expectation.
So what is that I do what?
You weren't listening or after?
No, I missed the part. You said
I
that,
do expect that if somebody asks you what the direction of council is, that you're representing council as a council member,
what, I'm circulating the petition? You mean?
just on this topic.
I guess in what context?
In what context? If somebody asks you what council's future intention of this park is, I expect that you're gonna say that there's a newly
Right.
renovated fire station and new playground.
Right. Right. When I've gone door to door, I've made it clear. I've said, look, council, I said the Republic vote in November 2020 was not tied to a location. Since that time, council has made, there was a split 4-3 vote. I am a member of council. I'm not here speaking on council's behalf. I'm here as a private citizen, working with a separate group. And,
What's the November 20th, 2020?
or the 22, or 20, whatever, I just,
Okay.
November 22, just the safety, public safety village.
Okay, I thought.
I remind people of the village and I say that wasn't tied to, it wasn't, but wait, I thought it was for that location. No, actually. It wasn't. That's what it wasn't. Council has since made this vote. I'm a member of council. I'm not here on council's behalf.
You explained that the ballot could have gone anywhere.
I did. I said, yeah, the ballot was not tied to the location. It said renovate, build, new, anywhere. I said,
Okay.
even somewhere else besides even 40. I mean, yes, I am making it very clear that what council has wanted, that I'm a member of council, that I'm not there speaking on behalf of council. This is a separate effort. I really don't feel like I'm doing anything wrong.
Okay, then maybe you aren't, maybe you aren't. I was asking what was going on, that's why I brought it up. Sorry, I had to ask.
Well, and it would have been, I mean, nothing, in my view, nothing has happened. No, nothing has been submitted. Maybe we don't get the 5% of signatures. You know, that's entirely possible. And then it's much to do about nothing.
It is possible. Okay, well,
Here's one quick thing, one last thing to say, and I too suffer a long memory, and I know for a fact, and it is on YouTube somewhere, and I can find it if we need me to, that we all sat here, this council, as it's seated, we all sat here after the bond language passed, you know, on the election, and the mayor asked us, do we need to have a separate public meeting about the location of the fire station before we vote? Not one of us said yes. We all said no, and we all moved on. So I hope that's something that you want to accurately reflect too, when you're talking to people about this process and how it's come down. And again, I will find that meeting and send it to everyone if that's needed. It happened.
I appreciate the opportunity to discuss it. Zach, question on my report?
Well, to add, when it's very easy for folks to find my city council email. If ever I've been contacted about this item, I've said I can't answer it from here, contact me elsewhere. As a civil servant, you often have to, you don't do what you would do, you have to carry out the will of the folks, and it's disappointing to think that I would be accused of not being able to separate those out. It's what I do for a living. When I'm not on the Zamboni, that is.
It just hasn't been clear what
anything, there's no accusation, it's been career. Joe?
Comments? This has been a very difficult topic. After the fair comments from Council Member Griffin, I was actually a little bit thrown. I don't understand how. I'm trying to figure out in my head how it is that whatever debate we had about 15 years ago on a building that was somewhere downtown about possible city offices flex upon some council rules. I don't get it. How somebody thinks they can figure out what happened at that time. As far as, we didn't have video recorded then. We didn't have audio, recorded then. Barely had minutes. I mean, minutes only reflected the decisions that were taken, none of the discussion. That's how it was. And so not sure about that. It's very easy to wrap yourself up in a flag when you're going after a position or an effort, whatever you want to call it. It's very easy to say, I'm championing these people that are unheard and not listened to. The fact of the matter is, we have listened. We have gotten the results from people. I've talked to people. In fact, I've talked to people who said they voted no on the ballot because it was possible it could be built at the man property, not the other way around. We got survey results back that people favored both places. The vote that we're having here, I don't understand it. Yes, it's a 4-3 vote because that's how the people in the city feel about it. And the problem that I have with this is we're fighting for the people, and yet those people are being duped. The people that are being asked to sign this petition are being duped. It starts with the name, the Friends of Mill Creek Park. This petition would not even exist if we had voted to put the fire station at the Matt property. The petition would not be there. It has nothing to do with Mill Creek Park. This is strictly a gambit put together by some people to say, how do we stop the fire station from going there? How do we stop the representatives of the community that listened to the community, that analyzed it and had a different opinion on the situation than I did? And how do I direct us in a different way that I think, in my opinion, is better, in my opinion, is more important than those other people? That's how I feel about this. That's how it feels to me. I told you, I literally was laying down today before the meeting, trying to calm down before having this conversation because it's so insensitive. It's just crazy. And then we start out this discussion and get this feedback, and I think to myself, you know what? It doesn't matter what I say. It matters not a win. Miss Griffin and Mr. Michelle are going to go and do whatever they want to do. There's absolutely nothing I can say or do that will make one whit of difference. The only thing I will say is I would 100% agree and vote for, and I'll make the motion if you want, to take them off their committee assignments because they do not represent council. They cannot represent council. You cannot separate I'm a private citizen when you're an elected official. It's not the same. You have an expectation. It's like saying, I'm not a parent and letting your kids do whatever they want to do because in that moment you're not a parent and then you want to be a parent a different time. You either are or you aren't. You're either on council or not. People look at you as a community leader, as somebody who represents them, as somebody who, when they come to your door, you can't say, well, sorry, I'm taking off my council button, not council now, I'm somebody else. It just doesn't work that way. Now, all that being said, opinion. It's my opinion. That's how I feel about it. Myself as a civil servant, You know, I have certain things that the federal government says that literally after I leave employment, no longer working for the government, those restrictions continue on me for the rest of my life. Now, granted, that's federal law. But I think it carries through. It carries through. What you do, who you are, reflects who you are when you walk up to somebody's door. And the biggest problem with this whole petition is it's misleading people. Every single item on the website that's listed, that was listed in the Sun Times, every single point that's listed on that website is a misrepresentation in some way. Every single one of them is an opinion or a flat out misrepresentation that's in there. And it's just, why is it bad that we have people that are putting out a petition and saying, hey, let's have a park here instead of a fire station? Well, yeah, I'd like to have dessert before I have dinner too, but I know I'm supposed to eat dinner first. We have a responsibility. We have no money to do a park in that location. We have no money to do renovations on that building. If we don't do a public safety building there, we don't have any money to remediate any of the potential contaminations that are there if we don't do that building there. But heck, it can be contaminated. Let's put a park there. That's a that's a great idea. It's just crazy. And the thing is, when it's that far overboard, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. This stuff, this kind of thing has not happened in 20 years. The last time this kind of stuff happened was the road through the park. That's the last time there was this kind of insanity and craziness at council. And that we took 10 years cleaning up after that happened. There was stuff that happened there. We literally were in the Michigan Supreme Court 10 years after that whole thing happened, still sorting out the issues that came up when that initially happened. This is the kind of stuff that when I was at the forum, I said, this is the kind of stuff that will damage our community and make this not the place. People say, what makes Dexter Dexter? What makes Dexter Dexter is what Donna Fisher used to talk about. That when you walk in the office, somebody greets you. When you call up there, somebody answers the phone. When they come in, you help them out. That we're a community. And this is not a community. This is, how do I win at all costs? All rules are up. The only thing that matters is to win. That's it. That's how I feel about it. That's why I'm angry about it. That's why it bothers me. So.
Okay, appreciate you letting me ask some questions on that discussion topic. I do want council to know that when I go to see the MEDC, which I've never been involved with before, I do plan to try to convey the history of the property and what we've done since all the way back in the early 80s when we set up the industrial park to try and get the industry out of town, and the amount of investment and time and stuff we put into trying to turn that property into something other than the industry that it was. So if you have any thoughts on that or whatever, prior to, just reach out to me ahead of time. I will move on to the consent agenda, where there are 3 items, K1, 3, and 4. If somebody could please move the consent agenda.
I move we approve the 3 on consent agenda, bills and payroll in the amount of $732,617.77. Purchase of wastewater treatment plant grading from fiber grade composite structures in an amount not to exceed $17,022. Playground mulch bid award to Superior Ground Cover for an amount not to exceed $7,220.
Thank you. Motion by Hubbard,
I second.
second by Aldag. Thank you. If you could please, I will vote to approve the consent agenda when you're ready.
Clough,
Yeah.
Rochelle's,
Yes.
Griffin. Yes. Hubbard.
Yes.
Sunny Pharaoh,
Yes.
Aldag,
Yes.
Keo.
Yes. Thank you. Motion carries on the consent agenda. We have no unfinished business. New business item M1 is consideration of the Grand Street Trail Connector bid from PIDC LLC and amount not to exceed 229,286.3.
I'll make that motion to approve the Grand Street Jail Connector bid from PIDC LLC in an amount not to exceed $2,206.83.
Motion by Senator Farrell, thank you.
I'll second.
Second by Hubbard, thank you. Discussion, any questions on this? We'll start with that. Thank you, Jim.
Just that I appreciate that we reached out and were able to get additional funding for that. And remember when this came through, thinking it was just really expensive relative to what had been spent on that for.
Yeah, we're very fortunate to be able to, even though we didn't get the full amount of impact fees we applied for, at least we were able to get something for this project was really helpful. And then seeing the bids come in under estimate is also really helpful.
I did notify the DDA 2 meetings ago that I would bring forth a total bid amount to them and see if they would be willing to contribute some towards this, but we haven't approved our budget yet to, unless they did it last meeting, I don't know where, I don't think they have approved the budget yet, but I'm working to try and get the DDA to contribute some, because it is in the DDA. So. Any other questions for Justin or anything we need to know, Justin?
We're going to be getting started on this as soon as we can. We're still working on finalizing a construction easement with Aaron Brower.
Okay.
We approached him. He wasn't willing to grant the full permanent easement right away. He wanted to wait till the very end of his project before doing that.
Okay.
But he said that he'd be willing to consider a temporary construction easement in place of it. So.
Yeah.
Is that gonna affect the way that we gotta build that?
No.
I mean, we're not.
We also already have a temporary construction easement from like Penn
Okay,
at this property right next door.
thank you.
Okay, please call the vote.
Senator Farrell,
Yes.
Aldag,
Yes.
Michelle's,
Yes.
Hubbard. Yes. Schlaf,
Yeah,
Griffin,
Yes.
Keel.
Yes. Excellent, motion carries. New business item M2, consideration of a proposal for construction engineering services for the Grand Street Trail Connector from OHM Advisors and amount not to exceed $23,880 dollars. Is it a motion? I'll make the motion. Okay. Motion by Senator Farrell, second by Schlaf. Thank you both. Additional questions on the engineering proposal? Everyone ready? Please call the vote.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Right.
Yeah, last time we built a boardwalk, the deck ended 3 or 4 inches above the sidewalk that it was touching. Is that going to happen again? And, or rather, what are we gonna do to not have that happen again?
That won't happen. The tying point actually is, Justin mentioned, is with the Brower project, and we've already been coordinating those elevations with the work. I don't know if you go back there recently, but just in the last week, this heard for instance, the sidewalk to connect along their northwestern property line from the marsh area up to Grand Street.
So it's gonna be smooth,
Yes, we've been coordinating, with the elevation has been coordinated, with.
and if it isn't, who fixes it?
It will match. Or survey information for the design of the boardwalk, but it's given to them before they lay it out there.
All right, thank you.
Any further questions? Okay, please call the vote.
Schlaf,
yeah,
Senator Farrell,
Yes.
Griffin,
Yes.
Aldag,
Yeah.
Michelle's,
Yes.
Hubbard. Yes. Keel.
Yes. Okay, motion carries, 7-0, thank you. New business item 3, consideration of organizational matters resolution. I need to make sure that whoever makes the motion adds the approved subcommittee for working on fire station project, which was myself, Senator Farrell, and Aldag, as primary and alternate Schlafly.
Before that, do we need to add bicentennial committee to that in some level?
I apologize, I don't. No, because they're just, they're a subset of ACH. Okay, great.
Yeah, all the discussions are going to receive too.
Right.
I move to amend the organizational matters resolution to include the public safety facilities user group comprised of 3 council persons selected by council, the DAFD chief and a firefighter of his choosing, Washington County Sheriff's Office supervisor and deputy as selected by WCSO, City of Dexter city manager, City of Dexter public services superintendent, with the specific council members to be named to be Mayor Keo, Ms. Alday, Mr. Semifero, with Mr. Schwab as an alternate.
And so we're affirming what we passed last time, is that correct?
Right, I read
You read the minutes, other than you got Zach's question? I think you had a correction of there, as opposed to his, if I remember right.
Oh, I just repeated the content, not the like actual.
Okay, fair enough, fair enough. Is there a typo? I'll say. Okay, everyone, take myself wrong. Thank you. Any discussion? Please call the vote.
Griffin,
Yes.
Hubbard. Yes. Semi-Pharaoh,
Yes.
Alday,
Yes.
Michelle,
Yes.
Schlaf.
Yeah.
Keo.
Yes. Motion carries, thank you. Do this item for consideration of signing addresses for bond authorizing resolution. So. We've obviously picked where the majority of the money needs to be spent. Relative to renovations and or new, have to be determined to go through this. I think it's important that we also clarify in the resolution that essentially this facility here could be used as a temporary for the fire department personnel if the renovation requires it. There's a whole wing over there with bathrooms. A building there that could be used to house at least one vehicle for rescue. I do think we should add the DPW address. What was it? I don't know if that is up my head. I don't believe that all of that property is railroad property that we own. It's a good point, but we certainly can't build something within the railroad right without their permission, but that doesn't preclude the address being, in my opinion, from being listed on as a possibility. I think it gives us good flexibility to to provide that continuity of service, the fact that you have, asked for, and I think we all agree is a must as we go through the project. So I would, if council agrees, I would like to seek a motion to have the bond authorizing resolution modified to include 8140 Main, 3515 Rod, and what was it again, Justin?
3600 Central.
3600 Central. But I throw that out there. I think that's a good idea. I don't know how other council members feel about that.
I'll make a motion to amend the ballot language approved at February 27 meeting to include the following addresses: 8140 Main Street, 3515 Broad Street, 3600 Central Street, all of Dexter, Michigan 40. As presented at the March 13th council meeting.
Myself, Carol, is there a second?
I'll second.
I don't think, thank you. Zach,
The motion was to amend the ballot language. I don't think we can change the ballot language after it's been voted on.
Yeah, that was gonna be my comment.
is that what you said?
We can amend it,
The bond.
the bond authorizing.
Okay, so,
Sorry, I just read it off the sheet, that's what it's saying. It's spot on.
I'm not going to accept that. But I accept that.
Okay, so the motion to clarify, to amend the bond authorizing resolution. It was approved at the February 27th, 2023 meeting. Everybody understands that? Good point, Zach. Thank you. Zach?
Couple points of clarification. I suppose Mr. Breyer would be best to answer this. We don't have to have specific link addresses located, correct, within the resolution.
It's not required.
And if we do, and we find a different location, we'd have to come back through this process and re-amend it. That'd be correct?
So this is the last meeting where we'll be able to amend the resolution before the issuance of bonds.
So if we issue the bonds with these addresses and someone on Second Street says, hey, we've got now an empty warehouse, we can't use any of the bond money for that.
That is correct.
And we haven't, has the DAFDB been asked about these addresses if we provide adequate service for them?
I have talked in concept with fire chief about this address and the DPW.
Okay,
So yes,
not hearing something from him and not having clarity on the DPW location, whether or not we're allowed or not to do that, and potential other challenges with this, I can't support it as presented.
I would just like to say, I have also heard that from the chief. I believe Dan was at that meeting when the two of us met with him, and he definitely was open to this as a possibility for use, in the DPW. As we, move forward and need flexibility during the project.
Don't we have another $1 million that we've saved that doesn't have anything to do with the bond?
correct. Good point. Yeah,
So the bond proposal read for the purpose of paying the cost of acquiring, designing, renovating and or constructing public safety facilities in the city. What would we be proposing to do I guess, not 8140, at 3515 or 3600 that would require the use of bond money?
we might renovate the building to have a temporary door so you can park an emergency vehicle there. So it's out of the weather and it has direct access to Huron Street, for example. I'm suggesting.
Yeah, I guess I feel like there was a lot about that language, I suppose, that was not clear. And so I guess using some of that bond money for some sort of temporary facility.
I mean, it would be no different if we put up a temporary building down where the park equipment is or wherever, so the truck could be behind the building. But, I'm thinking that most of that area is gonna be used as laydown area or construction access area if we get that far there. And then, it'll be likely to have a different location. So,
And, I just want to add that the options that were proposed, when we're, putting those together right before the ballot language, going out, and especially the one for 8140 included amount for covering for
that's right.
What?
The cost estimates or something.
estimates for where the fire facilities would be, meanwhile, if the 8140 is the selected site. So there was that information that was shared out. A question for Justin, if we, or both of you, if we put these three addresses, and as Dan mentioned, if we want to use something better comes up, something Mr. Michelle brought up, can we then use that separate money and don't worry about? So basically it gives us more options of having these three.
So I mean, council has $1 million set aside in general fund balance. And it was specifically set aside for public safety facilities project. If you tap into that for something that is not allowed in the bond. It just means that you would not be able to reimburse that money from bond funds.
The other thing is that if we only, for example, include 8140 and not DPW in this building, then we won't be able to use the bond money for these two. So we either add the 3 addresses or we only add 1.
So, I mean, if you only add 8140, then bond funds would only be available for 81.
That,
So what happens if we don't have all our geotechnical back? Don't have our floodplain study back? What happens if it's not feasible for us to use 8140? If it becomes extremely cost prohibitive? Does that mean we have to go to another ballot question to the citizens to approve another one, since we've tied barred the bond and the money to these 3 specific addresses?
So for our bond council, if for any reason council chooses not to go forward with 8140, then basically we're sitting on those bond funds if we tie bond funds to 8140.
other questions? Okay,
I just think given the uncertainty of variety of issues, it makes sense to leave that as flexible as possible. That if you specify no address, you can use the fund anywhere. I don't know why you would want to restrict yourself. The city.
I just want to make a comment that, I always like the idea of flexibility. And having that, and I have actually had a hard time with this, agenda item and thinking about it, because I felt that having that bond resolution not be attached to an address gives us the most flexibility. What is unfortunate is that it seems that the decisions about the fire station is not just made at this table and part of these discussions. And it creates, it actually is taking flexibility a lot out if we want to move forward. I'm just very sad that the circumstances created are bringing us to making decisions that it could have been handled in a different way and together in a longer discussion and path.
But this is always where the geotechnical report has been a list recommendation. It is extremely unlikely that it's gonna come back and say it's unbuildable. And there's a building there that stood there for a long time, extremely solid. There's a lot we can do with that property. And geotechnical, environmental, all those things. They're normal courses of construction. Okay, you might have different levels of what you might need to do based upon what you find at any given site. But you do, those words are being used, I don't want those words to be used as scary. Okay, we do that on any site of what we do. No matter where we build, we would do these things. The soil dynamics allow for the engineers to design properly whatever it is we decide to put above ground. So. Anyway, I also think this clarifies to the community that we have an intent to have temporary service still within the city. We have 2 places where we can do that, and that's a very important message to convey about our intent to construct a new fire station and or the renovation as that plays out. Clerk, please call the vote.
Holbeck,
Yes.
Griffin,
No.
Schlaf,
Yes.
Hubbard,
Yes.
Sunny Pharaoh,
Yes.
Michelle's,
No.
Ian.
Yes. Thank you, motion carries. New business item M5, professional goals and objectives document. We postponed this from last meeting, I believe. Or we defined discussion on it. It reappeared. You come ready to discuss tonight? You wanna pick it up as part of the budget workshop a little bit and talk a little bit about it? Wednesday?
Yeah, I would move that we postpone this until our budget will start on Wednesday.
Second. Moved by Hubbard, second by Pelletero. Second. Okay, please call the vote, postpone.
Sunny Pharaoh,
Yes.
Holbeck,
Yes.
Michelle's,
Yes.
Griffin,
Yes.
Schlaf,
Yes.
Hubbard.
Yes.
Ian.
Yes. Thank you, motion carries. Our last new business item is the moving of the fiscal year 2022-2023 quarter three budget amendments from the consent agenda, which is now item 6. The script you asked for this to be moved, so I'll give you the floor to explain why.
Yep, let me just back.
Or you can start with the motions. They approve, and then we can ask questions.
Yeah, I guess we should approve the budget amendment. As it's Sunday, 8586 of the second. A second.
The motion by Griffin, second by Alday. Okay. Ask away, please.
And if anybody has a problem with me making a comment, let me know, so I'm gonna try to, make it generally and see if Justin or Josh will speak on my behalf.
What page you on?
I'm trying to get there.
Oh, sorry.
85 or 86, right?
Yeah, the 85.
Anyone? So I see that there's some transfer out, from parks. And I don't know if Justin or maybe Josh more recently can speak to this general sentiment on the Parks Commission about wanting to save up money across, fiscal years, and I don't want you to speak for anybody else, but if what you think a reaction would be to.
Yes, so, the transfer out in parks, is, so. It took a long time and then. It took a long time to get our legal permit for the Grandview Trail Connector. Which has put us, basically to last month to bid. And so it's looking like we'll be able to start that project before July 1st, but a majority of it is gonna happen next fiscal year. But with that being said, the way the budget is fleshing out as of right now, it is looking like we're gonna have 200 to 300,000 in revenue over expense, which is what would normally get added into general fund. I know that when I was staff liaison in parks, and I imagine the same conversations have happened since Josh has taken over. But there was a desire to set aside money, kind of what we've done with the fire station, to put it towards Mill Creek Park when that time comes. Now, Josh and I have been rapidly applying for every grant that we can find to apply money towards Mill Creek Park. But whatever grants we get, however much we're able to get that way, chances are there's going to be a required match from the city. And that park is the renovations to that park that have been discussed are going to be north of $500,000 a day. Yeah, it's probably between 500,000 and $1 million, based on what Parks' vision for that project is.
Sort of, yeah, so is the money you're basically saying we're taking from parks right now because they're not using it this fiscal year. Is that same money then going for the next fiscal year?
Yes, well, so we are basically turning around and putting it back into the budget for next fiscal year for that same project.
Okay. Okay, but I guess I want clarification on that. Thank you.
Wow, is that the only question?
Yes.
Does anybody else have any questions on the budget? All of you? Okay, we have a motion by Griffin. I'm sorry. Yeah, motion by Griffin, second by Aldag to approve the budget amendments for the Q3 2022-2023 fiscal year. Please call the vote.
Griffin,
Yes.
Aldag,
Yes.
Schlaf,
Yes.
Hubbard. Yes. Michelle,
Yes.
Penny Pharaoh,
Yes.
yeah.
Yes. Motion carries. We're back around in non-range participation. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to speak this evening? If so, please welcome Jim. All right.
I'm good, thank you.
Please state your name.
And very long for your adjournment. I don't want to talk about the fire stations. I want to talk about the other part of the street.
Just quickly name and address.
Okay. My name is Jim Chesney, PHESNY, and I live at 150 Jefferson. And I'm interested in the 3045 Broad Street development. I'm following that. But I see sort of two things coming at a collision course here. I just want to alert you of the solution, but you approved the connection of Grand Street from Park, and we hope that the county Park and Rec people will come through with the iron bridge that will connect the Chelsea end of the trail. So Mill Creek Park is going to be a significant attraction for Dexter. Last year, 426,000 people came to Dexter because of the B2B trail. And that will increase. I think it's easily likely that in 5 years, you'll have 1 million people coming to Dexter. So I am very concerned about how we're planning for that Forest, Broad Street, Grand Street area to be an access to the park. And I'm, you know, aside from the financial considerations in the 3045 Broad Street development, I think there's a very significant issue of how that development or any development there will affect our ability to attract people to what I think is the diamond in Dexter, which is that park. But I'm just laying that on the table. I have a solution for you. That's why you all are elected. I'm a citizen who cares very much. I moved to Dexter because of the park. And I feel strongly that that part of the park needs to be enhanced and protected so that people have access. If you're successful in building a residential community in Dexter, people are gonna want to get to that park. And if I can't drive there and park there and have amenities there, I don't think they're gonna do it. So I don't want to stand in the way of adjournment, but I just want to let you know that.
Well, thanks for attending the whole meeting and providing comments.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Josh, do we have any hands online? Anyone online that can speak this evening?
I have no hands on
Okay, council comments this evening. Michelle.
Let's start with something simple to mulch. We really should mulch the play areas every single year. When I worked in parks, that was a very high priority. If it goes down and someone gets injured and you haven't done it that year, you can get in lots of trouble. I recently had occasions to be in Westridge and Huron Farms, and holy smokes, we have a lot of Bradford pears in there. For those of you not familiar, Bradford pears live 15 to 20, maybe 25 years. Most of ours are 25 years. We really need to start to plan to get rid of those things. They like to fall apart when there's wind or snow or ice, or someone looks at them cross-eyed. So we really shouldn't spend money trimming them in the future. We should spend money cutting them down and putting something else out. So I think that's something that we need to be planning for. I would ask kindly that in updates that go out, we remind folks that when their dogs are off their property, they need to be leashed. My wife was walking our puppy dog by the schools on Sunday, and he was attacked by a German Shepherd that was off leash. It's probably best for the German Shepherd and myself that I wasn't there, but it could have gone very, very poorly. I'll close with the thought by Mr. Saginaw, one of the founders of Zingerman's. When furious, get curious. One of the hardest things to do is try to see through other people's eyes. That's for everyone, not just here. And I think everyone and this body would be better served if folks try to get curious when they get furious. That's all.
Thank you, Jamie.
Yeah. I think the only thing I want to say is that I can definitely appreciate the perspective that on any or all issues we're moving forward as a unified body. But I just want to share the perspective, or I guess the paradigm that I'm operating from, particularly when seated at this table, that we are under no obligation that once the majority of council has decided on a direction, in any future meeting, there's no obligation for all of the votes to be unanimous. There's no reason that you have to, get on board with that idea. If it's something that a person continues to disagree with in their capacity on council, at the council table, regardless of what's happening outside of council, I just want to make it clear that my intention, so it's separate, tangential, I guess, from what we talked about tonight, but that I don't think it's necessary once council's headed in a direction for all subsequent votes on that topic to be unanimous.
I agree with you. So
Yeah, I have a couple comments. One is some of the things about, that was mentioned about my, attending the, meeting of the Friends of Canal Break Park Committee that was formed by Ms. Griffin and Mr. Michelle. I just want that to be clear that it's beyond involvement and it's just formation. I have said my involvement in the March 27th council comment. So for anybody who wants to see that, please refer to that. I just don't want to repeat it here, and I have put a timeline of events together that if anybody is interested, I'll be more than happy to share. But on a completely different note, what I want to say is that on Saturday, I had a chance to attend a memorial for all cousins, and a large room at the Dexter High School, performing arts of people that were neighbors, were family, were friends, worked with Mr. Cousins in many capacities, served with him in a lot of boards and committees. A life of examples that I still don't know how it fit in one person, but only Paul could do it. It was a great memorial, and it was fitting for Paul. And at the end, we all received his carrot cake recipe. And it was just happened that we had gotten some carrot cake the night before from Metzger's, so Carl and I had that in Paul's memory.
very nice, thank you. Yeah,
No, thank you.
what?
I'm gonna say this in Adam's absence, I think it's I know it's show week, so that's probably why he's not here.
That's correct.
As I always say, the kids do a great job at high school with the theater production, this time it's the Sound of Music, and he is actually stepping out from behind the tech crew to play Rolf. So I think as many of us who can should go support him, being on stage this time, and he's a really good singer, and I think it's great, so I'm gonna be going Sunday, I think.
Nice. Joe?
For the, Mr. Lutton's presentation, are we gonna collect questions, comments, feedback, or are we just gonna wait till the next time we?
Thanks, we'll make sure that the communication, whatever you officially submitted, Michelle, we'll make sure that in the next packet. Actually, Doug, if you get that out before the next packet, the council can see it, but we'll make it, we'll include it in the next packet anyway. We'll have a general discussion item on the next agenda related to this. It might go to, set up a committee. I want to share what we received with supervisor of the South Township Board, just so they are aware. What was submitted. If you could do that tomorrow, so that they at least know prior to their meeting. You meet tomorrow? Thank you. You could try to wrestle that away from Michelle. Doesn't need to be the full application, just whatever he submitted the letter, whatever. And then maybe include a copy of this.
Should I,
PDF.
should I send it to just
Who
the
would-
supervisor?
Send it to the township, send it to the township manager.
You can send it to the board and manager.
Oh, that's fine. The manager can make sure everybody works with it. So I think that's that job, right?
Yes, we try to include everybody, but I don't think so. We're not.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Joe, so I will have a quick discussion. We're at no time. I looked up, the Lara rules, so we'll include the Lara rules and what ends the process of annexation, where everybody can have the same knowledge based on that. You know, we've done 2 annexations with style in the last 6 or 7 years, I think. If you include the Mill Creek Sporting Goods property that came in with their blessing, as well as the Dex Tech 60 acres, which was formerly Sloan Kingsley property that Dex Tech bought from them, that came in. You know, that process is very easy if both parties agree. If both parties don't agree, then it becomes very drawn out. Much like our legal sufficiency petition when we tried to incorporate from those 2. Anyway, I'll get those rules, or if you to get those rules, so we can all know what those are. We'll just have a general discussion, but I think the next step at the next meeting will be formalizing that committee and offering that committee to the township for communication, to start the communication. Assuming they vote to do a similar thing tomorrow. If they vote not to do that, then we're back to where we were 3 months ago, and we wasn't sure if we get that vote. So.
I guess I would like to see the process again, because I haven't seen it in a long time.
Yeah.
I also think it's important for us to know what our obligation as a community on the council is with respect to a request.
We have no obligation to say yes.
I understand, I'm just saying, we should all understand exactly.
Well, in talking to the 4 trustees at Sion, I kind of tried to say the same thing here. You know, it's not our place, it's inside the township. But I think any conversation starts with trying to get the common goals of what people see as a vision for the property. So, you know, if, for example, if we do form a committee, as Jamie's and I'd like to know what all of you feel are the important things about that property, things you like, things you want, the direction you want to see it. Because if there's common vision for it, this becomes much easier. Meaning, if what he's proposed is accepted, it becomes much easier. If we're at odds with the vision, it just becomes a sticky mess.
And I'm very interested in it because of the potential impact to the community. I mean, the residents that came here that live on Baker Road, I mean, the questions they ask are the questions that I have. It's like, great, you've got this, this plan you laid out. What if it changes? What if it goes different? And it's the same reason why I asked when we were talking about the common sales stuff. You know, all those things, all those plans are great, but people are motivated to make changes that are in their best interest. And if we are protected, and we take a leap of faith, and we don't have a way to back that up, then, you know, we're just gonna get short end of the stick every time.
Well, I think that, not to try and drag this out, but, you know, if that conservation easement were accepted, it would buffer any contiguity of the annexed parcel, or however you want to call it, for 5 acres from the other. Rest of Scioto Township, you know, decision, we're not involved in that. Understand that, thank you, but we'll try to get as much information as we can, have a good discussion, at the next meeting. Fine, last but not least, tonight,
I guess the only thing I would say is in light of Earth Day, which was last Saturday, think about your grass in your yards, possibly use them as fertilizers, don't spray paint anything, and also consider clovers. They add nitrogen to the soil, which will make your soils and flower beds better, and I think they're cheaper. So, in addition, when you're planting gardens this spring, consider invasive plants and what beautiful flowers are native to the shade.
thank you very much. You know, we have no proposed agenda items for future meetings, other than what we just discussed, will be on the agenda. Seek a motion for adjournment here at 10:20, please. Moved by Alday.
Second.
Second by Swanson. All in favor, signify by saying aye, please. Those opposed? Thank you, everyone, for the discussion this evening. Thank you for us to hear, see you Wednesday.